Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. This is the first day of our 5-day course where I'm going to be teaching harmony in relationships, helping you guys to understand how to build harmony within your relationships. Because the teachings of the Buddha are ultimately guiding you to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a permanent mental state where you no longer experience any discontent feelings, but also in addition to that, you're experiencing harmonious relationships, but you're going to need to cultivate the wisdom to know how to do that, where you're not having difficulties and struggles in your personal or your professional relationships. So there's teachings from the Buddha that'll be able to help you to be able to accomplish this in your day-to-day life. And this is one of the reasons why your life is so peaceful and joyful, not only your mind, but your life as well, is because all your relationships are harmonious. So right now, if you have relationships that you're struggling in and have difficulties where there's bitterness and harshness and hostility, this can all be resolved. It's not permanent. You can actually solve all of these things, but it's working within your own mind that's going to actually help you to be able to do this. So I'm going to be guiding you throughout the week of how to cultivate your mind in order for you to have harmonious relationships. This course isn't about changing other people. This course is about you cultivating wisdom so that you can have more harmonious relationships based on the decisions that you make. So I'm going to guide you in understanding how to do that. We're going to actually start with meditation, but before I do, I'd like to just kind of share with you what we're going to be doing in our class over the course of the next 5 days. I'll share with you guys essentially the content of what I'm going to be teaching you during this period of time. So as I mentioned, the course is over the next 5 days. We're going to be meeting from 9 a.m. and up to 3 p.m. each day. This is kind of the course time frame that we're going to be meeting. And then this is my contact information. If anybody needs my contact information, not necessarily during the class, but mostly after the class, because if you're coming to class, great, I'll teach you if you're here. But if you're not, it's okay. You don't have to tell me. You can come and go as you please. I understand that everybody's impermanent, and I don't have a longing and a yearning to have you here any particular day. So you show up when it is that you would like to show up and learn. But this is my contact information for pretty much after class and after this course, because you probably going to need personal guidance at different times. You're not going to be able to get to enlightenment in 5 days. You're not going to be able to build harmonious relationships in just 5 days. It's going to take you more time, so you can use this contact information to be able to help you. And all of this is on my website, buddhadailywisdom.com. You'll be able to find this contact information in order to be able to get in touch. Now, in terms of what we're going to be doing in terms of a schedule, each day we're going to be getting together in the morning, doing chanting and meditation starting at 9 a.m. in the morning. Then at 9:30, that's where I'm going to start our first discussion about whatever the topic is. Today, our topic is the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you need to know in order to be able to make your way to enlightenment. So I'm going to be starting that talk each day at 9:30. Some people refer to this as a Dhamma talk because the word Dhamma means teachings. So it's essentially the way that I think about it is a discussion. I'm sharing teachings with you, helping you to understand those, and then you're asking questions to be able to understand them further. We're going to take a mid-morning break somewhere between 9:30 and 12, usually between 10:30 to 11, somewhere in there we'll take a break. Then we generally go to lunch around 12 o'clock, sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but generally around 12 o'clock. We're going to be taking an hour and a half lunch break, and then we're going to come back and have more teachings and more discussions, things to help you guys further in building harmonious relationships. And then we're generally going to finish around 3 p.m. each day. And this is all based on Thai time. For all of you guys that are online joining us, this is all based on the time here in Thailand. This particular course is based on this book, this very first book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. I'm going to be helping you to understand these chapters, 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, and 15. But there's a whole section of this course, kind of like the bulk of the course, 2.5 days, that I've never even written about because it's very challenging to write about some of these topics related to harmonious relationships. So while I'm going to be teaching you this content from this book, this is only about half of the course. The other half, I haven't actually written about it in any books. So there's slides that if you would like to download the slides, they're on our website. You can go there, click on free books, and down towards the bottom, all these slides are there. But in terms of writing about these topics, it's much easier to teach it in person. So you can get access to this book and all the others, as well as the slides, by going to our website. You'll be able to download them in PDF. You can get Kindle versions of them on Amazon. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or Amazon has this book as well. So it'd be very helpful to be reading this book, because there are certain things that are in the book that aren't in the classes. And there are certain things that are in the classes that aren't in the book. So the combination of the two will really help you. In terms of the content that I'm going to be sharing with you, today I'm going to be teaching you the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and this is what's going to help you to train your mind, moving it towards enlightenment and having more and more harmonious relationships with others. And then after we do that, we're going to use the entire morning for that, because it's a very extensive, very detailed teaching. After our lunch break, I'm going to teach you transforming the three poisons. This is where you're going to understand the three individual problems that the Buddha discovered from a high level and what the solutions are of how to fix them. And I'm going to be teaching you all of these things in a way that you can independently verify for yourself, because nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. You can cultivate wisdom about these things. Then I'm going to be teaching you tomorrow how to identify your cravings. This is where you can actually identify exactly what your cravings are and almost go in and surgically remove them, because the Eightfold Path is going to teach you how to generally train the mind overall, but there's ways to surgically go in and almost remove these surgically, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. Then I'm going to teach you something that's called the 4 healthy mental states, or some people refer to it as the Brahma Viharas. These are mental states that are antidoting or remedying certain challenges that an individual experiences within their own mind. So I'm going to be teaching you about loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, because these are 4 healthy mental states that are going to eliminate things like anger or worry, anxiety, indifference. It's going to help you eliminate jealousy and envy, overactivity of your mind, and things like this. The real heart of this course is this particular talk that I'm going to do on Wednesday morning. It's titled True Love, Love Without Attachment. Because in order to actually get to harmonious relationships, you're going to need to know what love is. And right now, what you currently think about love may not actually be love. If you are falling in love with people and falling out of love with people, this isn't actually love. So I'm going to help you to understand what love is and how to actually practice unconditional love, because that's what's going to help you to build harmonious relationships. Without an understanding of what true love is and how to actually practice unconditional love, you would never be able to create harmonious relationships in your life. Then I'm going to teach you how to practice the teachings in the world of the unknowing, because while you're learning and practicing these teachings, there's going to be countless people around you who aren't practicing these teachings, and you're going to have relationships with these individuals, and it can be a real struggle and a real challenge for you. So I'm going to teach you how to navigate the world with a bunch of people who aren't actually practicing these teachings. Then I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachments to those who are closest to you. This is really going to help you to practice true love. It's going to help you to have harmonious relationships, because as long as you have attachment in your relationships, you're going to be discontent. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be agitated. You're going to be annoyed. You're going to have all kinds of problems and difficulties, maybe argumentative speech and things like this, speaking harshly and hostile with other people. So I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you, like your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children. This is a real challenge for people oftentimes to eliminate these attachments. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. Then I'm going to teach you how to share the path to enlightenment with children. If you have children or you're thinking about having children, great, you'll be able to learn that. But this is also going to help you in situations that maybe you have a brother or sister, or maybe you have a coworker or something like this who you would like to share the teachings with. There's a way for you to do that skillfully, and this topic is going to help you in those situations too. So even if you don't have children and you're never planning to have children, that talk will actually help you in situations where you might have friends or other family members that are interested in the teachings. This will actually help you to be able to understand how to share that with them. Then a big part of getting to harmonious relationships is choosing wholesome friends and companions to spend time with and to have in your life. You can actually be influenced in a positive direction or in an unwholesome direction. And it all depends on the choices that you're making about who to involve in your life. So I'm going to give you some guidance on how to choose a life partner as well as friends to involve in your life that are into wholesome things. And I'm going to teach you how to do that without judging them and without looking down on other people. I'm going to teach you how to practice these teachings in the workplace, because if you're only practicing these teachings in your private life, you would actually not get to enlightenment. You're going to need to be able to practice these teachings in your day-to-day life, not only in your personal life, but in your professional life too. And you can actually do this. So I'll share with you guys how to do that. Then I'm going to teach you the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. One of the things that the unenlightened mind doesn't really like, and when you're interacting with people who aren't on this path, when you say no, people are going to have difficulties with that. Like say somebody invites you to a party and you say, no, I can't come, right? They can really struggle with that and have painful feelings. And they're going to think that their painful feelings are coming from you, when in reality, it's coming from your own mind. Or from their own mind. So even though you know that their feelings are coming from their own mind, one of the things that the Buddha teaches you is how to navigate the world with all these unenlightened beings and making sure that you're functioning in a way that provides the least opportunity for other people to experience anger and frustration. Even though if they do, you're not causing it, they can still experience that. And you would like to practice in a way that reduces and minimizes the opportunity for them to experience any kind of anger. So you can actually practice in a way of understanding the art of the friendly no. If someone's asking you to borrow money or inviting you to a party or any other number of things, you might need to say no, but you can do this without saying the word no. Then in terms of your meditation practice, I'm going to be helping you to develop the breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. These are all positions that you can learn as part of your journey to enlightenment. We're going to mainly be focused on loving kindness meditation in this particular course, because the foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course focuses on the breathing mindfulness meditation, which is the foundational meditation that you would need. We're going to still be doing that in this course, but we're mainly going to be focusing on the loving kindness meditation. And we're also going to be doing Buddhist chanting as part of our meditation practice. We'll be chanting on the way in and chanting on the way out. So if you would like to practice your chanting, there's an opportunity for you to do that. Then I'm going to teach you how to receive continued support on the path to enlightenment and how to integrate these teachings into your day-to-day life so that you can be actively practicing them on a day-to-day basis. So this is what I'm planning to share with you guys over the next 5 days. Okay, so I'm going to end up sharing this talk with you about the Eightfold Path, but what we're going to do to start is do some meditation for you guys to train your mind a bit. But do you guys have any questions on the course that you would like to ask about what we're going to be doing over the next 5 days? No questions? Okay, so we're going to start with some meditation. If you guys would like to join along in the chanting, there's chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. I've talked with all of you guys before. You've all been here before, where I've talked to you about what chanting is, helping you understand that it's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. This helps to ease the mind in the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. For those of you guys that are online joining us, if you would like to see these chanting sheets, you can go to the website of buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then down towards the bottom, you're going to see the daily chanting sheet. This is what we're chanting on the way in and on the way out of meditation. After the chanting, I'm going to be providing some guidance to help you guys in your meditation. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just going to be meditating, everyone here at the temple and anyone joining us online. And then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class. So today we're going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation. But as we get going in the course, you're going to learn loving kindness meditation and you'll be able to learn how to do that. But today, this morning and this afternoon, we'll be focusing on breathing mindfulness meditation. So you're welcome to join along, making yourself comfortable in seated, lying, standing, and then there's the walking position for those of you guys that know how to do that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Otang Mahakavanhang Apivate Ami สวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up to the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. What I'm going to do this morning is help you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. And in terms of creating harmonious relationships, you're going to need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. This is the teaching that you're going to really need in order to transform your mind. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, that this course of harmony and relationships isn't to change other people. It's to change your mind. And by changing your mind and transforming your mind, this is what's going to promote more harmonious relationships in your life. So this teaching of the Eightfold Path is the path for all humans to enlightenment, and it's going to guide you in how to train your mind. The way that you can think about this is that it's like 8 individual dials. If you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 dials, trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. Your life is the same way. You can actually tweak these 8 individual dials within your own life and within your own mind. And this is what's going to produce the enlightened mental state and harmonious relationships, which is part of that. I'm going to walk you through each one of these factors of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is going to be taught using the words of the Buddha. So you can see exactly what he actually said, because oftentimes people in the world, they're actually studying the teachings of the Buddha, they're studying what they're thinking is Buddhism without studying the actual words of the Buddha. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is the actual words of the Buddha, so you can see what he actually taught, and then you'll know that for yourself, and you'll know what he didn't teach as well. This Eightfold Path is organized into 3 sections: the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. I'm going to spend time helping you to understand each individual section. We're going to take a mid-morning break in the middle here. As you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you don't believe any of his teachings. If you just believe what I'm going to share with you here, it's not going to help you, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it. Maybe you convinced yourself to believe it, or someone else convinced you to believe it. Your mind can easily be shaken up when you have belief. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have cultivated wisdom about the natural laws of existence, the natural laws around you. And these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like the natural law of gravity was affecting all of us as we were growing up, and we fell down, we bumped our elbows, we hurt our knees, we broke our toys, we cried and cried and cried because we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And this natural law was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. The natural laws that the Buddha is teaching you about, they're affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. And when you have a lack of wisdom of those natural laws, you're going to go out into the world and make unwise decisions, just like we did with the natural law of gravity. But slowly but surely, you can gain wisdom of the natural laws. And this is what we mean when we say awakening the mind to enlightenment, that you're cultivating wisdom about the natural laws. Because when you cultivated wisdom about the natural law of gravity, you started making wiser decisions, and it started producing more wholesome results for you. And the same thing is true about all these other natural laws. So when I walk you through this, I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can independently verify what I'm sharing. You're going to need to listen with eager ears. This is what the Buddha teaches you in terms of learning his teachings, that if you just sit back and you're just kind of like lackadaisical and just barely even listening to what the Buddha has to teach you, you're not going to be able to experience the results that he's sharing with you. But if you listen with eager ears and you're actively working to understand these teachings, investigating and examining through intellectual understanding, then you're reflecting on those teachings to independently verify them, and you're practicing them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. This is what's going to promote and produce the beneficial results in your day-to-day life. So as we go, I'm going to pause a few times to give you guys opportunities to ask questions. And if you would like to ask questions here at the temple, all you need to do is use the microphones in the white bowl there. That's going to help the people online to be able to hear you. So if you get a microphone and you press the gray button, you're going to see the lights come on, and then just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And then you can just keep the microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone. For those of you guys that are online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. I'll be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you have the added feature of electronically raising your hand. You can unmute your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream as well. So you're welcome to ask questions as we go, and you'll see that I'll pause a few times as we go. So these are the words of the Buddha on right view, the very first step of the Eightfold Path. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here, the Buddha is actually pointing to another teaching. There's a teaching called the Four Noble Truths, which is called right view. And when you understand the Four Noble Truths, you will be able to establish right view. So what he's doing here is he's just pointing to another teaching. The Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that integrates other teachings into it. So what you would do if you understand that here he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths is you would go study the Four Noble Truths, and that's what's going to help you to understand right view. So underneath of this line here, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths, just so you can have confidence that what the Buddha is pointing to here in right view is the Four Noble Truths. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths, because this is going to help you to establish right view. In order to be able to understand the Four Noble Truths, I need to first help you understand the three universal truths. Now, the Buddha refers to these, or we refer to them as truths, because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you're going to need to know that they're true. And that's why you're not believing these teachings. So I'm going to show you how to independently verify what the Buddha is teaching you, because what he's teaching you is how the world is. The Buddha didn't teach you the way the world should be. And if everybody follows rules and commandments, the world's going to become a better and better place. He's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's not teaching you a bunch of beliefs that when you die, you're going to experience some kind of beneficial life after this life. He's teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, that's what's going to awaken your mind to be able to navigate the world with wisdom and navigate these natural laws. So here in this first universal truth, he's teaching you the way the world is. And the way the world is that it's impermanent, that things are constantly changing. He describes conditioned objects, that a conditioned object is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. What a conditioned object is anything in the world that is a material world that you can see, that you can hear, that you can smell, that you can taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. Any of these things, they are all impermanent, meaning they are temporary. They're constantly changing. They arise, they change, and they fade away. These are called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. An unconditioned object, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. Enlightenment is that way, that it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, it doesn't fade away. It's an unconditioned mental state that you're experiencing permanently. Then the natural laws that the Buddha taught, they are also unconditioned, that what he taught 2,500 years ago as the natural laws, those natural laws haven't changed today. So that's why his teachings are timeless. Whatever he spoke about or whatever he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws don't change. They are unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. So everything in the world that you can see, hear, smell, taste, that comes in contact with the body, or thoughts or ideas that go through your mind, is impermanent. It's temporary. So this is the intellectual learning on this particular universal truth. But as I mentioned, you don't believe any of these teachings. You look to independently verify them. And what you do to independently verify them is you look around the world and you try to see, is what I just shared with you the truth? Because if you can find anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, if you can find something that's permanent, then this isn't a universal truth. So what you do is you start with things that you're familiar with. I suggest you start with this physical body. And you can ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If this body's permanent, it's been exactly the same your entire life. If this body is impermanent, then that means it's been constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's been constantly changing. Ever since the egg and sperm came together, this body's been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get fatter, we get skinnier, we get wrinkles or moles or pimples or gray hair. We start losing our hair. These are all changes that the physical body is experiencing. Our skin complexion changes, colors, things of this nature. What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, then that means that you've had all the exact same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, then that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People have been constantly coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Going up and down, up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. It just really depends, right? There's constant change in your bank account. What about the weather? Is your weather permanent? The weather that we experience, is this permanent or impermanent? It's constantly changing, right? It's sunny, it's raining. Here in Chiang Mai, we get smoky season, right? We get all these different things. Some places get hail and sleet and snow, tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons. This is all change in the environment. So we could go on and on and on, and we could look around the world. And that's what I suggest you do. If that's what you need to do in order to be able to verify this and see that it's true, you're going to need to be able to look around and see that everything around you is constantly changing. We started out with a certain number of people in our class, and now some more people have actually come to join. That's impermanence, right? And you might find that on Wednesday there's going to be more people, or tomorrow there's going to be more people. As we go, the Things are going to be constantly changing in the classroom, right? If you look at the wood planks on the floor, you can see that some of them are longer or shorter. You can see they're different color, different shape, different texture. This is all change, right? Everything's constantly changing. So you need to be able to see that this is a universal truth. And if you can't see that truth for yourself, you're going to need to understand that, because this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. By the time we get to the Four Noble Truths, if you've understood these three things, then it's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths. Then the second universal truth is called discontentedness, or discontent, or discontented. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used here. I don't use this word suffering because it doesn't accurately depict what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic. So I'll explain to you guys what discontentedness is, and then I'll circle back and explain to you why I don't use the word suffering. So the Buddha is talking about, in the second universal truth, what the unenlightened mind experiences. And he talks about these conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, the mind is going to experience in the unenlightened state pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So these three feelings is what an unenlightened being is experiencing, and it's based on some condition. So based on some condition, the mind's going to experience happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. So maybe somebody wakes up in the morning, they see it's sunny outside, and they get so happy. Based on the condition that the sun is present, now the mind is happy. Or maybe they look at their bank statement and they see a certain balance in their bank account, and now they get happy based on that condition, right? So it's a conditioned feeling. Based on some condition, the mind is now experiencing pleasant feelings. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. And they are also based on some condition. So this is part of what the unenlightened mind experiences. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could say that that's a painful feeling for yourself. You could put that in the painful category, but maybe shyness is a good example for that, right? It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were on public transportation and somebody that you didn't know came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say that it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Maybe your mind's dissatisfied or uncomfortable in that situation. That's the third feeling, the neither painful nor pleasant. And the Buddha is helping you to understand that this is what the unenlightened mind experiences. So essentially what an unenlightened being is doing is they look out, they see that it's sunny, they might get really happy and excited, but then when it rains, they're going to get sad or frustrated or irritated. An enlightened being doesn't experience this. An enlightened being is beyond all of this. They're experiencing unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy. They were already happy before they ever saw it was sunny outside. And then when it rains, they maintain their happiness because their happiness wasn't based on the sun. So therefore, their happiness doesn't go away when the sun goes away. So this is the second universal truth, referred to as discontent, discontented, or the mind is experiencing discontentedness. Now remember, you can independently verify this because you know at this point your mind is unenlightened, and you can think about all the different feelings that you've had throughout your life, and you can ask yourself, does this accurately reflect that? Does this accurately describe what you experience on a day-to-day basis? If there's any feelings that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, you can let me know when we get to the question period, and I will help you and we can talk about it. So some people refer to this as suffering. The word in the original Pali text, the original source teachings of the Buddha, is dukkha. And when the Buddha describes dukkha, he explains it as pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. He doesn't use the word suffering, in my opinion, because when you're excited, like if your boss came in and actually gave you a raise and you got excited because you're getting more money, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not. Or if that person you don't know came and sat next to you on the public transportation and your body was touching their body, in that situation, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? So the word suffering explains things like painful feelings, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, and all these other discontent feelings that are very painful to experience. So if we only use the word suffering, then we're not going to be understanding that pleasant feelings in neither painful nor pleasant are part of the problem. That means we're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha actually taught, and we're missing 66% of his teachings. So if we're missing 66% of his teachings, then it would be very challenging to actually get to the goal. So we need to be able to see these pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem. Now remember, they're conditioned pleasant feelings, meaning the unenlightened mind can only experience happiness if certain conditions are met. If my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, then I will be happy. Right? So the amount of happiness that you can experience becomes less and less and less and less. But when you get rid of that and you get to unconditioned happiness, now you can just be happy no matter what. Whether your bank account is high or low, or whether the weather is sunny or raining, whether your boss or your mother or father does one thing or the other, you can maintain your happiness, you can maintain your joy. So you would like to be able to see that these conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, because it's pretty intuitive to eliminate the painful feelings, but you're also going to need to eliminate the conditioned pleasant feelings so that the mind, if it's willing to eliminate the temporary happiness, then you can get to the permanent happiness, which is the enlightened mental state. And the word discontent is essentially helping you to understand that during this period of time, when you're experiencing a conditioned feeling, the mind is unsteady and unstable. It's shaken up. That's what the mind is experiencing when it's discontented or experiencing discontentedness, that it's unsteady, it's unstable, it's shaken up. Now there's this third universal truth. It's called the universal truth of non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual problems in the mind. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. This word fetter comes from what was going on during the lifetime of the Buddha, that if you were a prisoner and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and they would keep you in an open field. Nowadays, we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would just attach a fetter around your ankle and you would stay in this open field. So when the Buddha discovers these 10 individual pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. The individual is confined to experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're eliminating these fetters out of the mind. So that prisoner, when that shackle and chain and that ball gets off his leg or her leg, they're free, right? They're liberated. They can now roam about the world and be free. So it's the same thing as that when you eliminate these 10 fetters or these 10 pollutions out of your mind is now free. It's liberated. It's peaceful. It's joyful. It's enlightened. So this third universal truth of non-self is helping you to understand the solution to the very first problem, the very first fetter that the Buddha describes. It's called personal existence view. So I'm going to explain to you what personal existence view is, then I'll explain to you the solution. What personal existence view is where the mind is confused, where it has misunderstanding, that it has misperception about this body and about this mind. What the mind is doing with personal existence view is it's clinging to your self-image or your self-identity within your mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're being perceived that way, you feel happy or excited or you feel pleasant feelings. But when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived by others, then the mind is discontent with painful feelings. So for example, if you've ever gone to a social situation and you spilled spaghetti or pizza sauce or ice cream on your clothing or some other food or some other drink, and now you were embarrassed, this is your personal existence view, that the mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're not being perceived that way, you're going to experience these painful feelings. Or if you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by this, This is the mind's personal existence view, where it's clinging to this body, this self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet thinking about, what is it that I want to wear today? Who am I going to see? And how do I want to appear to those people, right? And this is the mind's personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And as long as your mind is having this, you'll struggle and have difficulties in certain situations, right? So you can actually eradicate this. You can eliminate this from the mind. Or say that it's your self-identity, that there's certain things that your mind is clinging to with your self-identity. Like maybe I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am Spanish, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or any of this I am. It can be your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. It can be any number of things that the mind is clinging to, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now if you cling to those things as an identity, now in certain situations you will experience pleasant feelings, in other situations you'll experience painful feelings. So if you're at a restaurant and somebody was talking about the nationality that you identify with in a fond way, you might think like, they're talking about me, and now you might get pleasant feelings. But if a couple tables over, they're talking about that same nationality in a negative or degrading way, something that you're clinging to within your own mind as who you are as a person, you will be frustrated or agitated or annoyed in that situation. This is because the mind's clinging to a certain identity. Or say you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you identified with I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. And now, as long as you guys are in a relationship, maybe you feel just fine. But when you guys break up, you might have really struggled during that period of time. You might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. Because the mind identified with this role of I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. And now when you're single, the mind doesn't identify that way. And it might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Or say if you had a job or occupation that you identified with that as who you are as a person, like I am a police officer or something like this. Well, now if you retire, or maybe you get injured, or maybe you just got, no longer can do the job for any number of reasons, now you might really struggle during that period of time because your mind is identifying with I am a police officer, but yet now you're maybe performing the role of a taxi driver. So the mind can cling to any number of things in your identity. One time there was a student who contacted me, and they were really struggling after COVID, that they would go into different stores, and these stores were doing contactless payments where they had to kind of do something on a computer screen in order to be able to pay them. So in other situations where they used to be able to hand over cash, they couldn't do that anymore. They had to pay on this computer screen. And on this computer screen, it said like, what kind of tip do you want to give? Do you want to give like a 25% tip, a 28% tip, a 30% tip? And this person was really struggling. And they were like, David, I really am struggling here because I am a good tipper. And every time I go into this coffee shop, I spend 30 seconds giving them my order and they give me my coffee, and I don't feel like I need to tip them. But yet they keep showing me this screen that they want me to tip them, and I don't tip them, and I feel very conflicted inside. What's going on here? Why am I so uncomfortable in this situation? And the reason why is because they had this identity in their mind of I am a good tipper. And now in a situation where they weren't tipping, their mind was conflicted with that. So your mind can hold on to any kind of identity of who you are as a person, even I am a good tipper. And now when you're not tipping, you feel conflicted in those situations. So what the Buddha is teaching you in order to rectify this and to be able to resolve this within your own mind is to eliminate this idea that this body or this mind is who you are as a person. And he teaches you the universal truth of non-self, to help you understand not to cling to this body or the self-image or the mind, the self-identity, as who you are as a person. And when you can get to the point where you realize non-self, this is going to help you to reside more peaceful in the world. Because as long as you cling to this body or this mind as who you are, you will continue to have difficulties and struggles and challenges in your day-to-day life related to this particular aspect of the mind, this pollution of personal existence view. Sometimes this can be so challenging for people that they might come to a place like Thailand and they might say, I need to go find myself. I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find my true self. And they might come to Thailand looking for themselves. Well, they're not going to find themselves in Thailand, because what the Buddha is teaching you is it doesn't exist, right? There is no self. There is a body, there is a mind, and it has come together for this existence, but that's not who you are. So someone might come here for a few months or a few years and ultimately go back home and be like, yay, I found myself. I feel so good. I found myself. They might go around to their friends like, yeah, I found myself in Thailand. I know who I am again. I found my true self. Well, they actually haven't. What they might have done is they might have found a new job or a new occupation. They might have found new hobbies or new friends or new activities, but they haven't actually found themselves, because none of those things are you. Right? You might have found new friends, new hobbies, new activities, but that's not who you are as a person. And as soon as those things change, you'll be right back into the same difficulty and the same struggle again, where you don't know who you are. So the Buddha is teaching you, if you cling to anything as who you are as a person, when it changes, you will really struggle and have difficulties during that time frame. So the Buddha is teaching you that there is no self. There's this universal truth of non-self. Okay, so do you guys have any questions on these three universal truths? You can ask questions here at the temple using the microphones, or those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Looks like Hugo has a question.
When it comes to the permanent self, who am I? Then if I'm not a profession, I'm not a male, I'm not a father, I'm not a child. My body, my mind, my profession.
Yeah, so this is a common question that people ask. They'll say, if I'm not the body, if I'm not this self-image, and I'm not the mind, I'm not this self-identity, then who am I? This is the mind continuing to grasp and hold on to something. It's looking for something to grab onto because it's uncomfortable with the idea that there is no self. So you need to get past that, where you no longer are continuing to grasp to find a self. You need to get to the point where you realize that there isn't a self, and the mind's not continuing to grasp for a self. So it's a matter of understanding that there is a body, there is a mind, and there is a life, there is a human being here, but not identifying with any of these things as who you are. So it's to get to the point where you understand that you've fathered a child, and this person considers you to be a father, and you perform that role of a father, but you don't need to identify with that in your mind. Or I don't know if you were born in Australia. Were you born in Australia? No? So Argentina. Okay. So it's a matter of understanding that this body was born in Argentina, but you don't have to consider yourself to be Argentinian, right? That I don't know how you think now, because I know now you live in Australia, but you can understand that, wow, this body was born in a certain place, but I don't have to adopt that identity of who I am as a person. So you need to get past the who am I and understand that there is no self, and continuing to grasp and look for something to grab onto is just going to keep the mind continuing to struggle to find a self when there isn't one.
I understand the concept intellectually. Having said that, relating to others, it is difficult when one have to sort of explain what do you do. Mm-hmm. You know, who are you? And everybody relates to a profession, or whether you're white, whether you are non-white, whether you're Asian, whether you're British, whatever. Then how is it any tips in there how to what do? Do we keep a secret self about this? You know, a secret persona about it. You know, not to discuss it.
So in this book, Volume 1, Chapter 16, I go into multiple details of how to shed this self, because the mind has this perception of a self and that a self exists. But there's proactive techniques and tools that you need to employ in order to shed this. So here in this discussion with the 3 universal truths, I introduce students to what the universal truth of non-self is. But then later in the book, in Chapter 16 and in other classes and courses and retreats, I teach people how to actually realize non-self. So at this point, an individual needs to learn the Eightfold Path and practice that inside and out. In terms of going in and actually shedding the personal existence view, that's something that you're going to work on later. You need to first build up your Eightfold Path first. But ultimately what you'll get to is where someone asks you like, hey, what do you do, Hugo? In your mind, you can say, oh, I am a teacher, or I don't know your occupation. I think you're retired. I'm not sure. But let's just say you were an electrician. You can say to this person when they say, hey, what do you do? In your mind, you know that you are not an electrician. That's a role that you perform. That's your livelihood. That's what you're choosing to do in order to earn money, for example. But your mind doesn't identify that way. So you learn how to say things like, I am a Buddhist teacher, without allowing your mind to identify, inform feelings based on that. So if somebody asks me like, so David, do you teach Buddhism? I'll say, yes, I perform that role. I share the teachings of the Buddha. But my mind doesn't identify with that's who I am as a person, as a Buddhist teacher. So that's part of the disassociation that the mind needs to do with understanding that you're performing certain roles in the world, but you don't need to adopt that as your identity within your mind of who you are. And this takes training for your mind to be able to get to that point. You're welcome. Okay, so let me see if we have any other questions here online about this particular topic. I see all you guys online. Welcome to everyone. Let's see. Oh, we have a question here. Go ahead, ma'am, if you'd like to ask your question. Okay, since your mic wasn't on, I'll just repeat it for the people online. The question was, if there's no self, what's the purpose of life, right? So the Buddha's teaching on non-self isn't teaching you that there is no purpose or that you shouldn't have a purpose in life. What he's teaching you is that don't cling to this body or this mind as who you are, because you're just going to set yourself up for discontentedness. So for example, if I clung to the idea that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, right? Like these are choices and decisions that someone might have made in the past, but it doesn't define who I am as a person today. Right. So I can understand that, okay, and this being might have made choices in the past to use drugs and alcohol, but that doesn't define who I am today. So I don't need to feel guilty. I don't need to feel shameful for the things that I did however many years ago. That doesn't define who I am as a person today. So the universal truth of non-self isn't helping you to determine anything about your purpose in life and what your goal is here in this world. But this is a separate question, but I'll answer that part of it, is like, what is our purpose in life? Well, in reality, an individual's purpose in this life, in my opinion, is to be able to get to enlightenment, that you really have no purpose. Like if you look at us from an airplane and you look down, we look like a bunch of ants running around the earth, from car to car, from store to store, just kind of collecting up things, taking things home, using things. Sometimes people want to have this grand purpose in life, that they're having some significance in the world. But in reality, we're just one being of 8 billion beings in the world. And our mind is sometimes taught to go out into the world and we've got to change the world. And sometimes people carry around that burden, but that's a real big burden to carry around. And oftentimes the ego in the mind wants some kind of significance and wants some kind of purpose in the world. Well, as long as the ego is there, the mind might be looking for some kind of purpose of who am I, or what is my purpose in the world? What am I supposed to be doing here? Well, there is no being that has this grand plan for any one of us. It's our own individual life, and we can choose for ourselves what it is that we would like to be doing here, whether a certain job or occupation or hobbies or activities. Those are all choices for us to make. Nobody needs to give us a purpose. We don't have to have a purpose. But if an individual is interested in a purpose, what I would suggest is that your purpose is to be able to get to enlightenment. Because as long as you're in the unenlightened state, you're going to experience anger and frustration and sadness and stress and anxiety and all these other discontent feelings. And that's no fun to live in that kind of mental state. And if you can make your purpose to be able to get out of that, and that's your purpose, is to be able to get to enlightenment, that's where you'll get to the real peace and joy, and you can have a wonderful, satisfying, and fulfilling life. But as long as somebody's in this unenlightened state, seeking, what is my purpose in life, then the ego continues to stay in place, and the mind continues to want some kind of significance or purpose in this world, and for somebody else to give me a purpose, where you can understand your purpose is to live harmoniously with all beings. You need to be able to get to this enlightened mental state so that you can experience the peace and joy and satisfaction and fulfillment being in the world, where you can have sustaining and long-term relationships. But I would encourage you guys to not even think about that, to just work towards improvement in your life, training your mind, and don't think about carrying around some kind of burden of a purpose in the world, because that's a real burden to carry around. I wrote about this in this first book in the frequently asked questions section, because it's a common question that people ask, and you can read it in there, how I go through the details and explain to you that, during prehistoric times, those beings, like people that were maybe like what we would call cave people living in the caves, I don't think they were thinking about what their purpose in life was, right? Like they were just trying to figure out, can I rub these two sticks together and create something? What can I eat here in this forest? Can I eat these berries? Wow, should I put some clothes on? Like, is there some kind of fabric that I can put on my body in order to survive and be warm, right? They were just thinking about, how do I sustain this life? Because at one time in life, human beings weren't the dominant creature on this planet. Right? There were other creatures that were more dominant than us. At this point in time, human beings have taken over the earth, and we've become the dominant creature on this planet. But at one time, we weren't. So at one time, I would suggest that what human beings were thinking about was just how to survive, right? Let's just figure out survival. They weren't trying to figure out what their purpose was. Now, so many generations later, so many thousands and thousands of years later, we've become the dominant creature on this planet, and we look around the world and we're like, what's our purpose here? What should we be doing? Well, what I would encourage people to do is to be able to get to enlightenment, because that's where you're going to get to the peace and joy of the enlightened mental state. Any other questions that you guys have? No other questions? Okay. All right. So now one more thing in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, which is understanding craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind's longing, yearning. It's like an unquenchable thirst. It's the mind chasing after the objects of its affection, trying to form feelings based on these things. The mind is longing, yearning for something external. It's almost like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind longs and yearns and chases and chases. You might have been in the mall and saw a brand new pair of shoes, or a video game, or a new phone, or some jewelry, or some clothes, or something like that. And you're like, oh, I just got to get those shoes. Oh, I want those shoes so badly. I just got to get them. Oh, I want that jewelry. Oh, I want that video game or that phone. Your mind is like pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. The mind is like, oh, I know what I need to feel better. I need a new pair of shoes. Let me get a new pair of shoes. That'll fix everything. Or, oh, I know what I need. I want more money. If I just get more money, everything in life will be perfect. Or, oh, I know what I need. I need a bigger house or a better car. Let me just chase after those things for a while. Oh, I know what I need. A new boyfriend, a new girlfriend. That'll fix everything. Let me get one of those, right? And now the mind longs and yearns and chases after these things. And this is what's called craving, desire, attachment. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the object itself. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for that object. So it's something that's going on within one's own mind, where the mind's longing and yearning for something. Okay, so this is what a craving, desire, attachment is. It's a want or an expectation, the mind holding or grasping or clinging. Okay? So now I can introduce you and help you understand the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can have a real breakthrough. You can break through to understanding what is the problem in your mind, what is the cause of this problem, what is the elimination of it, and what is the path forward to fixing it. In these four simple statements, you're going to be able to independently verify why you keep experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. Because what people tend to think is that other people are causing you to experience these feelings. But what you can verify through the Four Noble Truths is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So I'll walk you guys through this in a way that you can independently verify, because once you understand what's causing these feelings, then you can actually eliminate them. If you don't understand what's causing them, you wouldn't be able to eliminate them. And you wouldn't be able to get to harmonious relationships if you keep experiencing anger and frustration and you think that other people are causing these feelings for you. So the first noble truth is explaining that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that each individual person is experiencing, that their mind is going up into this excited state where they're excited and happy, but then they're sad or frustrated or bored or lonely or some other discontent feeling. The mind's like going up and down and up and down. And these are the conditioned feelings that we were talking about with the universal truth of discontentedness. This is the problem, that the mind isn't steady and stable and cheerful and glad and uplifted. That's the problem that each individual unenlightened being is experiencing. The cause of that problem of discontentedness is that discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments. The mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to explain that a few times, or I'm going to say it a few times and then give you some examples to help you understand this. Those discontent feelings, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant are being caused by your own craving, your desire, your attachment, your longing, your yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So you can think back to maybe a relationship that you've had, maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first got together, you might have felt so happy, so excited. There's this new person in your life showing you affection, inviting you out to the movies or to dinner. Maybe you guys are going to the park and having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact, having sex with each other. Wow, so much pleasure, right? And this is like the beginning of the relationship. Things couldn't be better at the beginning of the relationship. It was so wonderful. But then over time, you had all these expectations. You wanted them to be a certain way, and they wanted you to be a certain way. And you couldn't meet their expectations all the time, and they couldn't meet your expectations all the time. And now you got frustrated or irritated or annoyed or angry, and you guys ended up breaking up in your relationship. And now when you guys broke up, now you were really maybe frustrated or agitated, or maybe you were lonely or bored. Maybe you were missing this person. Certain things that you guys used to do together, you're not doing those anymore, and you started missing this person, right? What was causing this wasn't your love or your care for this person. What causes the mind to be discontent is its craving permanence. It wanted this relationship to be permanent. It expected this relationship to be permanent. The mind was grabbing and holding on to this individual, wanting them to be in your life permanently, when in reality, they are impermanent because everything around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. And now you would have been lonely or bored or missing this person or angry or frustrated. So the mind's going to crave permanence, wanting things to be permanent. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. You guys will hear about that on Wednesday when we talk about true love. I'll go into that in more detail, helping you to understand that. But this pain that someone is experiencing at the end of the relationship is because the mind is craving permanence and wanting things to be permanent. The same thing is occurring like if grandma or grandpa have died, and maybe you're struggling during that period of time, having grief or sadness or misery. Or maybe you had a brother or sister get married. Or maybe mom or dad or brothers and sisters are dying or things like this. This is just impermanence, that these things are changing. If you've been at a wedding where you or other people were crying or grieving, this is because brother or sister, your friend or family member is going off into the world with someone else, and your mind's holding on to them, wanting them to be in your life permanently. And when they go off into the world with someone else, your mind really struggles with that. It really has a hard time with that. So your mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent. You can see this if you had a brand new car, for example, and you were really proud of this brand new car. You really adored this car. You thought it was a really nice car. You might drive it off the parking lot of the dealership, feeling so great about your new purchase. And now you park it at a store. You go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You might be really frustrated that you see this scratch, but it's not the scratch that's causing the frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the frustration is the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality you live in an impermanent world, that it's only a matter of time before this car gets a scratch. Whereas if you're craving permanence, when you see that scratch, it represents impermanence. And the mind doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence in the unenlightened state. So it can really struggle understanding that it wants this car to be permanent, but yet it's experiencing this impermanence. Because the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn, the paint's going to fade. These things are going to happen. And it's only a matter of time before these things occur. So if your mind is craving permanence, in these situations where you're experiencing impermanence, your mind's not going to like that. So one of the ways to say this is, yes, that the mind is craving permanence, but another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. The mind doesn't like change. When things are changing in your life, those are some of the more challenging times, even if they're decisions that you made in order to create that change. If you change living locations, if you change jobs or occupations, if you change relationships where you're leaving from one boyfriend or girlfriend, going to another person, this can be a really challenging time during your life because your mind doesn't like that change in the unenlightened state. But you can get to the point where you're completely comfortable with that. And it just takes training of the mind. Typically, when someone doesn't understand the second noble truth, when this anger and frustration is arising in the mind, these painful feelings are arising, you will typically attribute that to something external. You will think that the problem is maybe your friend or family member, and you might have been pushing people away out of your life. This is typical, what people will typically do. And you're not a bad person if you've done this. It's just that the mind's lack of wisdom, it thinks that the problem is external. It firmly believes that this other person is causing you to be angry, and you might push this person away, or you might push the situation away. Or the second thing you might do when you don't understand the second noble truth is that you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, thinking that you're going to fear this person into doing things your way. It's like, right? And the mind wants this other person to do things your way because it's trying to get to those pleasant feelings. Or the third thing you might do is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them to do things your way. And as long as you're doing this, you can't live harmoniously in all your relationships because it's only a matter of time before someone around you does something different than the way you want them to do it. And now you're going to push them away. You're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you're going to put your expectations on them and try to control them. And now you can't live harmoniously with all beings around you. So as long as you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you're going to want people to do things a certain way. And they're going to do it that way sometimes. But other times they're not going to do it that way. And you're going to be frustrated and angry and irritated because the mind's ego thinks that I know the right way to do things and everybody else is doing things the wrong way. And If people do it my way, I'm happy. But if people don't do it my way, then the mind is going to be angry or frustrated or irritated. And that's where people will push others away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people. And you need to be able to see that the cause of this problem, the cause of the discontent feelings, the cause of your anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other feelings is within your own mind. It's craving, desire, attachment. It's the mind longing, yearning, wanting things to be permanent, wanting things to be a certain way. So as I've mentioned to you at the beginning, don't believe anything that I have to say. You need to independently verify this. And the way that you independently verify it is you look within your own life and you look at situations where you've been angry, where you've been frustrated, where you've been agitated or annoyed. It might have been this morning. It might have been yesterday. It might have been last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, with this new wisdom that I'm now sharing with you, that it's your own mind that's causing this through craving, desire, attachment. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame other people for what you were experiencing, because that's pretty common, what the mind will do. But now look at that same situation. What was it that your mind was craving and longing, yearning for? And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you were angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling, right? Like maybe you showed up to the airport. You were really excited to go to Thailand. You just couldn't wait to go to Thailand. Man, it's going to be so great. That mango and sticky rice, those Thai massages. Oh, I just can't wait to do that stuff. Oh, I just can't wait to get there. And then you show up to the airport and your flight's delayed or it's canceled. And now you're frustrated or you're agitated. It's not the airline company that's causing that. It's not the pilot. It's not any of that stuff. What's causing it is the mind's craving permanence. The mind's wanting every single plane to take off on time. When in reality, there's going to be weather issues. There's going to be maintenance issues of the plane. There's going to be crew issues that maybe crew doesn't show up or they're sick or otherwise not available to work on this plane. Not every single plane is going to take off on time, because if that was the case, that would be permanence. But if your mind shows up to the airport craving permanence, when you experience this impermanence, your mind's not going to like that. Your mind's going to be frustrated or annoyed. You'll sit there in the waiting room for 3 hours being frustrated the whole time that you're not on that plane headed towards wherever it is that you would like to head towards. So if your mind's craving permanence in the situation, that's what you're going to experience. So you need to be able to look at each one of the situations where you've been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed and see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because as long as you go around the world believing that it's other people that's causing these feelings, you'll never actually be able to fix it. You need to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The third noble truth is helping you understand the solution to this, that you can eliminate these discontent feelings by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If the cause of your discontentedness is craving, desire, attachment, if that's what's causing it, then the way to eliminate your discontent feelings is to eliminate the cause. If you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect, right? So the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate discontentedness. You need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, wanting things to be permanent. And the way that you accomplish the elimination of craving, desire, attachment is explained in the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. That's the complete perfect plan of how to actually eliminate your discontentedness. By practicing each one of these, by learning and practicing each factor, it's going to slowly and gradually train your mind to no longer have longing and yearning, where your mind is craving for things to be a certain way. So that's why we're going to spend the whole morning helping you to understand this path. Because if you understand this path, you can gradually train your mind over the course of your life to get to the point where you don't experience discontentedness anymore. You don't have to be angry and frustrated. You don't have to be annoyed and irritated. You don't have to have bitterness and hostility in your mind. You can opt out of that by training your mind. And this is the way to do that. But it starts with right view. Right view is to have the right view about the world, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people. If you're blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, you'll never get to enlightenment, because it's not other people. Because what an individual will tend to do when they have wrong view is they will go out into the world and try to change other people. You might be trying to change your mom or your dad or your brothers or sisters or things like this. And if an individual is trying to change other people, you're not going to actually be able to get to the peace and joy that the Buddha is teaching you about. So if you establish right view, establishing right view is to understand that it's craving, desire, attachment. It's the longing, the yearning within your own mind that's causing these feelings. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths, because I would like to be sure that you guys understand these before we move on, because this is the foundation of all the other teachings of the Buddha. If you don't understand right view and that it's your own mind causing these feelings, why would you ever do anything to train your mind to be able to get to enlightenment? It's everybody else that should be here training their minds, right? Because your mind is fine, right? If it's everybody else that's causing you to experience these feelings, there would be no reason for you to train your mind. So that's why the Buddha starts with right view. So I see Janae online through Zoom has a question. So if you'd like to go ahead, Janae, you're welcome to ask your question.
So I was curious if the second noble truth is like directly related to impermanence. Like if everything was permanent and nothing changed and my mind was like never shaken up, would it never experience discontentedness?
If your mind, this is the interesting thing. Once your mind is trained to understand impermanence and you're comfortable with impermanence, the mind is finally going to get what it wanted all along, which was permanence. Your mind's going to get permanent peace, permanent joy, because that's what the enlightened mind is. So the mind goes around craving permanence all throughout its unenlightened state. But then once it gets comfortable with impermanence and it trains not to have craving for permanence, it ultimately gets what it was interested in all along, which is this permanence.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have anything else. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. All right. Oh, you have something, Hugo? Yeah.
Based on the fact that things arrive, change.
Your microphone is impermanent. I think you need another microphone there. The batteries are coming and going. Buddha's teachings even apply to modern technology.
Yeah. Based on the fact that things arrive, change, and fade away, is there such a thing as a friendship or relationship that
you might be hitting the button
by karmatic consequences? Like two people get together for a karmatic aim. When that aim is...
It's on. You keep turning it off. You just can't hear yourself. We can hear you though, because I hear you turning it off in the middle of your speech.
Okay, based on that, is there any evidence that two people get together for a karmatic reason, and when that reason is fulfilled, they get separated from no apparent reason?
Did you say karmatic reason? Okay. So everything we experience in life is based on our karma. I use the word karma because that's what is in the original words of the Buddha, the Pali Canon, but the word karma is talking about the same thing. This word karma or karma is not anything mystical or magical. It's cause and effect or action and result. So anything you experience is a result of your decisions. That's what the natural law of karma is teaching you, that when you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you're going to experience either wholesome karma or wholesome results, or you're going to experience unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So if you get a new friend, that is your karma. That is the results of your decisions, that you've made a decision to go out into the world. You were walking at a park, you saw someone sitting on the bench, you smiled, said hello, and then you struck up a conversation, and now you guys exchanged phone numbers and you're good friends now. That is your karma. That is the results of your decisions. But the way you're describing is that it's almost sounding like there's some kind of mystical or magical thing that's choosing to bring you guys together and then choosing to separate. That's not what's happening here. It's just the results of your decisions. Because if you go out into the world and you talk with people and you smile with people and you're friendly with people and you ask people for their phone number and you guys exchange contact information, you now have a new friend. But if you continue that relationship and you continue contact with that person, you'll continue to have a relationship. But if either one of you guys decide that you're not interested in a relationship anymore and you stop contacting each other for whatever reason, then you're not friends anymore, right? And you're not choosing to continue your relationship. But there isn't any kind of, universal force that's choosing to bring you guys together or choosing to separate you guys. It's based on your decisions that is leading to those kinds of things. And that is your karma.
Yep. Okay. And what would you say to somebody that says that a craving, desire, and attachment keeps them motivated to do things?
Yeah, that's what people do in the unenlightened state is they crave and they get motivated by that because they want those pleasant feelings. It's kind of like a drug addict chasing a high that an individual with craving, desire, attachment, which is every unenlightened being, they're going to crave and crave and crave, and they're going to push themselves. And that's how they're going to find their motivation to be able to accomplish any particular thing. But when they're operating through craving, desire, attachment, they're going to be making unwise decisions that are leading to unwholesome results. So let's just say I had a craving for more money and wealth, and I was pushing myself. I'm working 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours a day, and I'm pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm exhausting myself. And I'm not spending time balancing my life with relationships with maybe my life partner or my children or other people like this. I'm not spending time in a balanced way to have a balanced life. I'm just diving into work 16 hours a day, pushing myself just to make money. And now 3, 6, 8, 10 years down the road, I look back and I don't have any really close relationships because I've just been pushing myself so much because I wanted money. And that's what I was motivated, is based on that craving that I want money. Well, in this situation, it's producing unwholesome results. And the individual doesn't understand that because they're chasing those pleasant feelings, and they have this magical number in their mind that they feel like if their bank account balance gets to that they're going to somehow be happy. And they might actually make their way to that level and they get happy for a period of time, but that happiness fades. And then they want more money and more money and more money. So rather than just chasing this money for a year or two, they've been chasing it for 10 years or 15 or 20 or 30 years. And now their life is potentially challenged and destructive because they don't have any real close personal relationships because they've just been engrossing themselves into chasing after this money. And maybe they've even been stepping on people along the way, doing backhanded things, doing unwise things just to be able to get to that money. So while somebody could be motivated in that way and don't realize that what they're doing is causing harm for themselves and others, that's not the best way to live your life. That is not going to produce wholesome benefits in your life. But also, if you're on the other side where you were completely dull and complacent and you didn't do anything to pursue improvement in your life, that's not going to produce peace and joy either. So what an individual needs to do is, instead of being motivated by craving, desire, attachment, they need to be motivated by wise decision making to gradually work towards goals, objectives, or interests. I'm very motivated. I have a lot of enthusiasm to be able to share these teachings with other people, to be able to help them to understand how to get to this enlightened mental state. But I'm not chasing it. I'm not craving and longing and yearning. This is a lifetime pursuit of me sharing these teachings, starting, all the way back many, many years ago. And then I've just been gradually building things up slowly but surely. But if I was doing this with craving, desire, attachment, I would be chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing, and I would only be happy if I was getting what I wanted. So when I first started teaching here at this temple, for example, I would show up sometimes and there was nobody here, right? I would be here sitting outside and nobody would show up. And that happened multiple times because people didn't know that I was teaching yet. And if I was craving to share these teachings when nobody showed up, I would be frustrated. I would be annoyed. I would be angry, right? If I had a craving, desire, attachment. But since I understood that, this is karma, I haven't built up my karma yet. I haven't built up the awareness in the community that I'm actually sharing these teachings. So of course, nobody's going to show up when I first start teaching, but I stuck with it and I stuck with it. And then slowly but surely, we got to the point where there's days where there's 80 people here, there's 60 people or 100 people here, right? Depending on what season and what day and what I'm teaching, there can be 60, 80, 100 people here at any given time. So if the mind's craving, then it can only be happy if it has a certain thing. But when you can do things with wise decision making, you can gradually work towards it, and you can maintain your happiness and joy no matter what. So even when nobody showed up, I could maintain my joy because I wasn't craving. I wasn't basing my inner feelings on whether somebody would show up for a class or not. So no matter what it is in your life, if you would like to have motivation, doing it with craving, desire, attachment is ultimately going to lead to unbeneficial results and unwholesome results. But an individual needs to learn how to come to the middle and pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. But the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do that because it hasn't been trained how to do that. But once you do train how to do that, that's where the peace and the joy is. Because now you can pursue things in life and you can have sustainable energy. Where over here, where you're chasing things with craving, desire, attachment, and you're motivated by craving, desire, attachment, eventually that craving is going to burn out. And when that craving burns out, your motivation's gone. You don't have motivation anymore. So you might give up on this activity that you were actually pursuing. Where when you don't pursue things with a craving, desire, attachment, and it's just wise decision making, you can do that in a sustainable way. You can do that for the rest of your life. That's why the Buddha started teaching at the age of 35, and he taught all the way until he was 80 years old. Until his last breath, he was still teaching because he didn't burn out. You will burn out your craving, and then you will be unmotivated. But when you have wise decision making, you can continue to do something in a sustainable way, in a consistent way, and it won't ever burn out.
Understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Oh, sure. Yeah. It sounds like your mic's not on yet. The people online won't be able to hear you. Does it work? Yeah, you need to wait for the lights to come on.
So my question is, I think it's because we have those cravings, and those cravings actually becomes the driver for us to purposefully do things, to improve, to take actions. If we don't, and those cravings are an objective thing, it is there. You have to face it. It's not something that I can lie to myself. I don't have those cravings. I do have those cravings.
Yeah, so right now you have those cravings, but if you're interested in getting to enlightenment and having harmonious relationships, what I'm teaching you here in the Eightfold Path is to train your mind to not have those cravings. But you can't do that in the snap of a finger. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that you gradually eliminate these cravings from your mind, and then that's what's going to produce better and better quality of mind. So right now, of course, you have craving, desire, attachment, but if you're interested in improvement in the way that your mind's functioning, there's the ability for you to experience that through training of your mind, and that's what I'm sharing with you.
Yeah, but I think the mind, then you are denying that you have those cravings.
I'm sorry?
I think then if that sounds like you are denying.
Delaying or lying?
Deny. You deny you have.
Denying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you have those cravings.
In the unenlightened state, an individual will have cravings. But by training your mind with this Eightfold Path, you can eliminate your cravings. And you'll know that you're doing that because you'll see the improvement to the condition of your mind. Because you know in situations where you once used to experience anger and frustration, and agitation and annoyance, when you're in those same exact situations, having trained your mind, and your mind's not being angry, it's not being frustrated, it's not being irritated, then you'll know that it's these teachings and it's the elimination of craving, desire, attachment that has produced that. But right now, you haven't learned how to train your mind, so you can't see what it is that I'm sharing with you. Right now, you're in a position that you're choosing to learn this, but you haven't been able to implement it in your day-to-day life to be able to see the effect and the benefit of it yet. And that's where you're going to actually know the truth and cultivate wisdom that, yes, this is 100% the truth.
Yeah, my struggle is if I'm craving for something and I acknowledge this craving and I act on it, But I think what you are teaching me is to ignore those cravings and then say, you're not, like, I need to tell myself I'm not attached to this.
That's not what I'm teaching you. Yeah, that's your own perception within your own mind. I haven't even taught you how to eliminate them yet. I've just explained to you right view of what is the problem, the cause of that problem, that an individual needs to eliminate it. And what the fourth noble truth is explaining is that the Eightfold Path is going to teach you how to eliminate it. So this Eightfold Path is what's going to teach you how to eliminate it. I haven't even taught you that yet. That's what I'm going to walk you through with now. But the first part is to understand right view. You haven't even gotten to the actual solution yet. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions. So now I'm going to move on to right intention, helping you guys to understand this one. It won't take me the same amount of time to teach you each one of these steps as it did for right view. Right view takes a while to teach it to you. Each one of these is going to be a lot shorter. So let me teach you guys this one, and then we'll take a break after this. So here's the words of the Buddha. He says, "In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention." So sometimes people translate this as right thinking or right thought, because what you need to cultivate in the mind is the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. This is what's going to set your mind up for the rest of the training that the Buddha is going to teach you. Right intention, having these three aspects of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is the willingness to let go and give up your unwholesomeness. Certain false beliefs, certain false opinions that you currently have in your mind, you need to be willing to let those go. As long as you hold on to your false beliefs and your false opinions and your false views, you'll never actually get to enlightenment, because the mind is closed and it's not thinking about other things that you don't currently understand. One of the first false beliefs that you need to get rid of is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or irritated. That's one of the first things you need to get rid of. But you're not getting rid of your false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. That's not what you're doing, right? The teachings of the Buddha aren't about belief. What you're doing is you're cultivating wisdom. And when you cultivate wisdom and you look at that wisdom and you see that it conflicts with your current beliefs, you get rid of your beliefs and now you have wisdom. So in order to practice the intention of renunciation, you need to have an open mind to be willing to look at the things that you don't understand about the world. Because if your mind's experiencing frustration or anger or irritation or annoyance or guilt or shame or fear or stress or anxiety or loneliness or boredom or any of these other discontent feelings, there's certain things about the world that you don't currently understand. That's why the mind is struggling and having difficulties with things like stress and anxiety and other things. If your mind fully was awake, if you had full wisdom about these natural laws, you wouldn't experience anger and frustration and sadness and these other discontent feelings anymore. So as long as you hold on to what you currently think you know about the world, you will never actually get to enlightenment. So you need to have the intention, the thinking or the thought of letting go, bringing in wisdom and letting go of the things that you currently think about the world, because that's just going to hinder you from being able to understand this new wisdom that you need to bring in to be able to train your mind. Then there's also certain unwholesome things that you're doing. Maybe certain ways that you're speaking, certain ways that you're interacting with people, certain ways that you're conducting yourself in certain situations. You're going to need to look at those things and improve that. Because if you are holding on to those unwholesome things, you're never actually going to be able to train your mind to do wholesome things and make different decisions about how you interact in the world with other people. Then you're going to need to have the intention of non-ill will. Non-ill will is a double negative. And whenever in English you have a double negative, that means a positive. So the idea of non-ill will is the same thing as saying goodwill. What the Buddha is teaching you is to have the intention of goodwill towards all beings. This is active goodwill, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Then the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. As long as you're causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. So you need to get to the point where you have the intention or the thinking or the thought of being disinterested in causing harm to others. And that is going to then help you with the rest of the path that we have to share. So this right intention is to train the mind to let go, having renunciation, that you're practicing non-ill will or goodwill towards all beings, and that you have harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. Okay, so these first two sections of right view and right intention, this is a little summary. That right view is the Four Noble Truths, essentially accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these discontent feelings. That it's not the external world. It's not the war. It's not the weather. It's not your mom or dad. It's not your boss or your coworkers that are causing your mind to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It's not the outside world. It's the inner world. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that through the Four Noble Truths, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these discontent feelings. Right intention is to understand the practice of the intention of renunciation, being willing to let go, give up your false beliefs, opinions, and views, and your unwholesomeness, being willing to practice the intention of loving kindness or non-ill will, goodwill, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. And this is the first section of the Eightfold Path, of the wisdom section, right view and right intention. Do you guys have any questions on this? Let me see if there's any questions here online. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a little break. It's 5 minutes to 11. Let's take a 20-minute break up to 11:15. And then when we come back in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to continue on explaining the moral conduct and the mental discipline, which is going to help you further round out your understanding of the solution of how to actually fix the mind to get to the point where it can function with this peace and joy. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys at 11:15. Okay? So thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest to learn, and I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Okay, welcome back to everyone here. Welcome back to everyone online as well. I'm going to keep on going here and help you guys to understand the moral conduct section as well as the mental discipline section. We're going to move into right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Whenever you're learning moral conduct from the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to understand what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma. He's not teaching you rules and commandments. Sometimes people think that's the case when they study teachings like this, because you're going to hear me talking about these kinds of things around your moral conduct. What he's helping you to be able to see is this cause and effect, or this action and result related to the natural law of karma. That when you're making decisions wisely, you're going to experience wholesome results or wholesome karma. But when you're making decisions unwisely, you're going to experience unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So what he's teaching you in the moral conduct section is wise moral conduct that is going to promote healthy and harmonious relationships for you in a way that you can interact with all beings harmoniously. So he's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not trying to guilt, shame, or fear or convince you to do anything. Because remember, he's already peaceful. He's already joyful. He's just sharing what it took for him to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. And whether you choose to learn and practice it is up to you. So when you're learning moral conduct, he's not telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing. He's explaining to you this natural law so that you can see the truth for yourself of how to interact in harmonious ways within your relationships. So I'll show you what I mean by this, because essentially it's your life, your decisions, and your results. Everything you experience in your day-to-day life is the results of your decisions. It's nobody else making decisions for you. So it's not good luck or bad luck. It's not destiny or fate. It's not God that's controlling what you experience on a day-to-day basis. It's not other people that are controlling what you experience on a day-to-day basis. Everything that you're experiencing is a result of decisions that you make. And if you're confused about that, or you're looking to independently verify it, ask yourself, who chose where you're sitting right now? Who chose the clothes that you're wearing? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose the food that you ate for breakfast, or whether you even chose to eat breakfast or not? Who chose where you live? Who chose any of these things? These are all choices that you're making. It's not anyone else that's making these choices. So whenever you're making decisions wisely or unwisely, it's going to produce either wholesome or unwholesome karma. And what the Buddha is going to teach you in the moral conduct section is how to produce wholesome results or wholesome karma as it relates to your moral conduct. Because if you're causing harm through your moral conduct, this harm is going to come back to you. So now you can learn right speech. This is the third factor of the Eightfold Path. Is going to train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, because that's what the Eightfold Path is there for, is helping you to train your mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And there's certain things that you can be doing through your speech that is allowing your craving, desire, attachment to come through. So, for example, here the Buddha is teaching. He says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So here he's talking about 4 things that are all based in craving, desire, attachment. You can independently verify that when you lie, when you slander, when you have harsh speech, when you have frivolous speech, it produces unwholesome results for you. Because as children, we all lied growing up, right? Every single one of us lied to a certain degree. And if you've ever done a lot of lying, you could see that your mind was uncalm or unsteady, and it produced unwholesome results because people discovered your lies and they found out that you were lying, and they looked at you as being untrustworthy, undependable, and unreliable. And if you ever did a lot of lying in your life, you probably had to figure out who did you say what to at any given time. And now your mind's having to obsessively figure this out. How could you ever get to peace and joy if you're trying to figure out what you said to one person versus another versus another? And the whole reason why the mind is lying is because there's a craving, there's a desire, there's a longing, yearning. And if you tell the truth, you're not going to get what you want. The mind wants something. It's expecting something. It's trying to get to those pleasant feelings. And it feels like if I lie, I'll get what I want in this situation. But it's producing unwholesome results for you. That's why the Buddha is teaching you that it's unwise to actually lie. And it's based in craving, desire, attachment. Whenever you're making decisions through craving, desire, attachment, it's going to produce unwholesome results. Then if an individual is slandering or gossiping, this is like damaging other people's reputation, trying to diminish or degrade somebody else. If you've ever done this, you know that it produced unwholesome results. This is why if you look on the news and you see investigative reporters maybe slandering or gossiping somebody, next thing you know, they could end up dead or murdered. Remember, I'm not explaining to you the way the world should be. I'm explaining to you the way the world is. And if you go out in the world and gossip and slander people, damaging their reputation, you're causing harm. And at the height of this, an individual can be murdered. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering, when your back is turned, people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. It's only a matter of time because you've gotten these people used to gossiping and slandering by you gossiping and slandering. And now when your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So it's going to produce unwholesome results if you're gossiping and slandering about people. And once again, this comes from craving, desire, attachment. The mind has a craving to look good in front of others, and it thinks if I diminish other people and I push them down, it's going to make me look good. It's kind of like going into a dark room and everybody has a candle, and you're thinking, if I can put out somebody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. Right? But you're in a dark room. You need as many candles as possible. Let's not put out anybody else's candle, right? So you would like to be able to navigate the world where you're not gossiping and slandering about other people because that's coming from your own craving, desire, attachment, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Harsh speech is like your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, the way you speak in the world. And if you have a craving, desire, attachment, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile, trying to fear other people to do things your way. It's like this harshness coming out, right? I'm sure you've done this, right? That you've done this in different relationships that you've been in. That's because there's a craving there. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, where you can be gentle in the way that you speak. Then there's something called frivolous speech. This is like if you were just talking and talking and talking and talking, yada, 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 yada. And just the person's like, oh my goodness, when are they going to stop talking? Right? This is like a craving where the mind is just talking and talking and talking and talking. You're not actually having a conversation. It's actually broadcast. You're actually broadcasting to other people. And in this situation, there's an underlying craving that you just want to talk, right? You would like to restrain the mind and have a conversation. This is what's going to promote harmonious relationships in your life. So this is the top level of right speech. Ensuring that you're not lying, slandering, having harsh speech, or frivolous speech. And if you need to work on any of these four, it would be wise to stay with that and work with those four. But then there's other teachings that the Buddha shares that integrate into the Eightfold Path. And here's one here that you're going to ultimately need to be able to practice in order to fully practice right speech. It's called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. He teaches to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, it's gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. What he's explaining to you here is how to train your mind to speak in ways that is harmless, that is wise, that is blameless towards other individuals, that you can see that your mind is functioning in a way that you're being harmonious with all beings around you. Because speaking at the proper time, what this means is that you're not interrupting other people. If you're stepping in and interrupting on people, there's a certain craving there that you have to talk, and your mind just can't wait to get in there and talk, and there's an underlying craving that the mind has. And you don't like it when people interrupt you, so you probably would know that if you interrupt other people, you're going to cause difficulties in your relationships with other people. So you'd like to restrain the mind and make sure that you're speaking at the proper time. Another aspect of speaking at the proper time is making sure that your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, you're not in the proper mindset to talk. So if you tried to talk, you're going to be talking through your anger, and the only thing that's going to come out is your anger and your hostility. And this is going to cause difficulties in your relationships. The other aspect of speaking the proper time is making sure it's the proper time for the other person, that the other person's mind needs to be calm and peaceful as well. If they're angry, if they're agitated, if they're frustrated, it's not the proper time to talk. You guys aren't going to have a very healthy conversation and a harmonious conversation. So you would like to get to the point where you're speaking at the proper time, right? That you're paying attention that you're not interrupting, that you're looking over your mind to see that your mind's not agitated or frustrated, and then even checking in with the other person to make sure it's the proper time for them to speak about any particular thing. In terms of speaking the truth, that's making sure that you're not lying. That's covered up here with the main right speech, because when you speak the truth, then you know something to be true with 100% certainty. You've independently verified it. Like, you're not spreading conspiracy theories and lies and things like this, that you know something to be true with 100% certainty. Then you would like to speak gentle. That's what we were talking about up here. You're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Whether it's in English or any other language that you might speak, you're going to need to pay attention to that. You might even need to insert certain words in order to ensure that people know that you're being polite and kind and friendly and respectful. In the English language, we can use words like thank you and please. We can use words like sir and ma'am and things like this, where in the Thai language, they have so many words that we can use in order to make sure that people know we're being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But in other languages, we need to really look at it and figure out what is it that we can be using in order to ensure that people know that we're being gentle with them in the way that we're talking. So if you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, you can speak gentle in all situations, and that's what will produce wholesome results for you. Speaking beneficially is the method of how you communicate, that you're clear and concise in the way that you're speaking. It's not necessarily about the topic, it's about the method of conversation, that you're not just having frivolous speech or idle chatter or pointless, unpurposeful speech. You would like to be clear and concise in the way that you're communicating. Then, speaking with a mind of loving kindness. This is having a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of loving kindness would be inner hate. If you're speaking with inner hate, this is going to cause difficulties in your relationships. So you would like to encompass your speech with all 5 of these factors. In the situations where you're attached to people, where you have craving, desire, attachment, you'll find it to be the hardest to speak in this way. When you're not speaking in this way, it's because there's some underlying craving that your mind's having. And you can train your mind to not have that. And this is one of the ways to do that, is to speak in this way. So what we're talking about here is something in the Thai language that's called barami. In the Thai language, there's this word barami that means the one who people listen to. When you speak with right speech, you will become the one who people listen to, because you're speaking wisely in a way that's not causing harm to other people. If you live in a Thai village, there's typically elders in the village that people respect, and they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. If you are interested in getting some help with any personal or professional challenges that you might have in your day-to-day life, you might go to these village elders in order to be able to seek guidance and seek help, because they're very successful in life. And when I mean successful in life, I don't mean monetarily successful. What I mean is that they're successful in their relationships. And this is how you can get help, is from individuals that know how to be successful in their relationships. So these individuals have barami. They're very influential in the community. And the way that they've established that is through practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So if you're interested in being influential in your family or in your personal or professional life, you would like to establish barami. But it's not going to be 1 week or 1 month or even 1 year for you to be able to establish barami. You're going to need to speak this way for multiple years so that the people around you get used to you speaking in a wise way. So that's what this 5 factors of well-spoken speech are guiding you to understand, is how to actually speak in a wise way. Now remember, you're not here to believe any of these teachings, right? These aren't rules or commandments. You would like to reflect on this to see if it's actually true. So take a situation where a conversation hasn't gone well for you in your life. Maybe it ended in disaster. Look at that conversation and look at how you were speaking. Were you speaking at the proper time? Were you speaking the truth? Were you speaking gently? Were you speaking beneficially? And were you speaking with a mind of loving kindness? If you missed even 1 factor of the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, there's the potential that your conversation didn't go very well. Either you or the other person wasn't using these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And if you missed more than 1 of these 5 factors, there's really the potential that the conversation didn't go well. But then also look at the other side of this. because you guys have had conversations in your life that have gone well. Maybe at the first break that we just took, maybe you guys had some wonderful conversations with your classmates, right? You guys might have been practicing these 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That if you are practicing these 5 factors, remember, these natural laws affect you, whether you're aware of them or not. So even when you weren't aware of these 5 factors in this natural law, you've been speaking with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in some situations. And that's why those conversations have gone well for you. So now that you understand what these 5 factors are and you're consciously aware of them, you would like to integrate them into your life more and more and more, that in more and more of your relationships, you're using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And that's what's going to produce the beneficial results in your day-to-day life. Right? So you can integrate these into your life and consciously be practicing them. But it's going to be challenging in those relationships with your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, where you have craving, desire, attachment in relationships or to other things. It's going to be challenging for you to practice these in all situations. So where the Buddha referred to this as right speech, because that's pretty much what was going on during his lifetime, was speech, you would like to maybe think of this as right communication. Because there's more than just speech that we do nowadays. So if you went into a job interview and you were speaking and you were using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and you knocked it out of the park, they might be interested in hiring you. But if they would looked at your social media and they saw this harshness and bitterness and hostility, they probably aren't going to hire you for the job. So you would like to make sure all your communication is using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Your social media post, your text, your voice messages, all these things, anything that you're doing in terms of communication. So in terms of like practicing speaking at the proper time or communicating at the proper time. If you're angry and you're frustrated and you walk over to your computer and you're pounding on your keyboard with anger because you're trying to send that message to someone where you got angry, it's not wise to hit send. It's better to hit save, right? Because then you can come back later, a few hours or a few days later, and you can look at it and be like, oh man, I need to rewrite this email. So thank goodness you didn't send it, right? So you would like to practice right communication where you're practicing all of these at all times during your day and with all your communication, including emails and text messages and social media posts and all these other things. In the book, you're going to see me go into detail about right speech because I go through each one of these factors and I explain them in detail. But one of the things you're going to see in the book is you're going to see me talking about speaking polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Because as you're learning the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, that's what you need in order to get to enlightenment. But there might be a period of time where you just can't remember the 5 factors of well-spoken speech because maybe you haven't studied it very closely yet. And you might be in a situation where you need to talk and you need to communicate. If you can remember to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this will really help you. Right? But ultimately, you're going to need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and practice them closely. But this polite, kind, friendly, and respectful can also be helpful as well. Then there's right action. The Buddha says, in what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. What he's talking about here is 3 bodily actions that can cause harm if you chose to do any of these things. And if you actually cause harm through your bodily actions, harm is going to come back to you. But he's not giving you a complete exhaustive list. He's just giving you 3 very impactful ones. Notice he doesn't say don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Right? But you can understand, if you understand right action, that it would be unwise to punch somebody in the face because the gamma, or the results of your decisions, is they're probably going to punch you back, right? Or they might pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family might actually attack you, right? This is the results of your decisions. So the Buddha can't put an exhaustive, comprehensive list here because, for example, he wouldn't have been able to say, it would be unwise to walk through the aisle of an airplane and drag your suitcase and run over people's feet and bump them in their knees, right? He wouldn't have been able to say that because he didn't even know that airplanes existed, right? Because they didn't exist during his lifetime. So he's just helping you to understand that any bodily actions should be harmless. And he's giving you 3 really impactful ones so that you can clean those up. But then you're going to need to look at all your other bodily actions and how you move about the world, ensuring that you're not causing any harm. I'd like to point out this one of sexual misconduct, that sometimes people see that and they're like, hold on, what does that mean? What does sexual misconduct mean? Well, if you look in the 5 precepts, and the 5 precepts is where the Buddha describes what sexual misconduct is, and he goes into detail. He talks about having sex with minors. He talks about raping people, having sex without consent. He talks about going outside of your existing relationships and things of this nature, things that would actually cause harm, right? So you can look at the 5 precepts, which I teach in other programs and other courses, to be able to get an explanation of what sexual misconduct is. It's important to understand that he didn't teach that same-gender relationships are of sexual misconduct, because 2 individuals that are loving, loyal, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other, whether they're opposite gender or they're the same gender, they're not actually causing harm to anybody. So this is how wise the Buddha was, that 2,500 years ago, he already understood that same-gender relationships isn't actually causing harm. Where today we have a lot of people in the world that don't understand that, right? But this is how wise this individual was about the natural law of karma. So if you prefer same-gender relationships, or you know someone who does, you're not causing any harm. If somebody's getting angry or frustrated about you having a same-gender relationship, they're causing their own anger. You're not causing that anger and frustration. They're causing it themselves. So you can get more details on this, but be sure you're using the original words of the Buddha. The resources that I share here in this book, Volume 1, Chapter 7, it has the original words of the Buddha on the 5 precepts, because you need to be able to see his original words to be able to understand these teachings. So if you'd like to expand and understand further what sexual misconduct is, you're going to need to look at the 5 precepts, and I explain that in detail in Chapter 7. Then there's something called right livelihood. What right livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life, that if you sustain your life in a harmful way, that harm is going to come back to you. So a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. So here the Buddha says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, a noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. Here, he's just saying something very general and very broad, but if you go deeper into his teachings, he gives you all the details about what is right livelihood. And he gives you these 5 individual livelihoods that would cause harm if you chose to do any of these 5 things. So if you chose to have business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, or poisons, all of these things are meant to cause harm to others, and that harm is going to come back to you based on the way that you're choosing to sustain your life. And remember, you can independently verify this. Don't believe what you're hearing here, because this is the Buddha teaching the natural law of karma. So if you just take one of these, let's do that in class, but you can look at the others if you like. If we take substances that cause heedlessness, we can independently verify that this would be unwise and is causing harm, so therefore harm is going to come to me. So if I was standing on the street corner selling heroin or crystal methamphetamine or cocaine into the community, I'm causing harm to the community. Because now these people are getting addicted to these drugs and these substances, and now they're going to go out and steal. They're going to go out and maybe sell their body for sex. They're going to do other things like this in order to be able to bring me money in order to get that substance. So now I'm causing harm in the community. And because of that, with me standing on the street corner, I can easily get beat up. I can get robbed. I can get murdered. I can get arrested and go to jail. I can actually experience getting addicted to these substances myself. These are all harms that I'm going to experience as a result of choosing to sell drugs into the community. But remember, this is the natural law of karma. In most places in the world, it is illegal to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine into the community. But there's other substances besides illicit drugs that an individual can understand that this natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level than just the human laws that we create. So in the country that I was born, you could work at a liquor store, and maybe in the country where you're born too, you could work at a liquor store, and that would be completely fine with the government. The government's not going to come arrest you for that if you'd like to be a cashier at a liquor store or a bartender or something like this. But if you understand the natural law of karma and what the Buddha is teaching you, you might come to understand that it's unwise to work in a place like that. Because if I worked in a liquor store, those are places that get robbed, people get beat up, people get murdered in those kinds of places. At the very least, I'm going to experience dealing with intoxicated clientele from time to time. And how could you ever get to a peaceful and joyful life if you're constantly having to deal with intoxicated people, right? So the Buddha is teaching you this natural law of karma that is a much higher law than the human laws. So you need to be able to understand that if you just followed your government's laws, those laws are imperfect because they're created by human beings. This natural law of karma isn't created by human beings, and it's the most unbiased teacher that you will ever find, because it's going to show you in situations where you're making wise decisions and you're making unwise decisions. So this is one aspect of right livelihood, is ensuring that you're not doing any of these five. Then the Buddha teaches you how to perform your livelihood, because he's guiding you to have a successful life in your professional career, because that's what's going to help you to be able to have peace and joy in your life. If you're not able to sustain your life in a trustworthy way, in a wholesome way, you're not going to be able to have a wonderful, peaceful, and enjoyable life. So he teaches you that in your livelihood, ensure that you're not scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, or pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is where you're corrupt, right? Like say I was a politician. That's not one of those five wrong livelihoods. I'm not causing any harm by being the mayor of a town. But if I was corrupt and I was doing backhanded deals, that's causing harm. So now 10 years, 15 years into my career, people found out what I'm doing. They're not going to reelect me. And now I'm having difficulties to be able to sustain my life. So it's important that whatever job or occupation you have, that you don't have any corruption or scheming as part of that. Then what flattery is where you're giving people insincere comments just to try to get them to purchase things from you. If you've ever been to a store and you've walked in and they were like, oh my goodness, that shirt looks so amazing on you. It brings out the colors of your eyes. I've got these great earrings that are going to go so well with that shirt. Come over here. Let me show them to you, right? You're like, ugh, it just doesn't feel right. It feels kind of icky in here. This person just kind of smathering you with these insincere comments just to try to get you to buy their earrings that they're trying to sell you, right? So in those kinds of situations, if you were doing that, people aren't going to be interested in buying from you, and you're going to have difficulties building up your career. So the Buddha teaches you not to flatter your customers or your coworkers or things, that you should be sincere in the way that you talk. He also teaches you not to have hinting. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise in your work. So say all of us are on a project team and we need to go in and brief the boss about the project that we're working on. We'd like to be clear and concise and to the point. Whereas if we're just hinting around, kind of beating around the bush, it's going to take a long time for the boss to figure out what we're talking about. And now we're not going to have as much success. So the Buddha teaches you not to have any hinting. What belittling is where you're degrading or diminishing your coworkers, your business partners, or your competition. Sometimes people think the way to be successful in business is to degrade your competition. And by degrading your competition and pushing them down, it's going to make you look better. But in reality, it's just the opposite. That when you start degrading your competition, it's actually going to promote difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day life, because your customers are going to hear that and they're not going to be interested in working with you and potentially purchasing things from you. So if you don't have anything good to say about your competition, just don't say anything at all. If somebody asks you something about your competition, you can always say like, I'm not sure what they do, but this is what I can do for you. Here's what I'm able to do, right? And that way they can find out for themselves what your competition is doing. What pursuing gain with gain is this is where you just really don't care about the product or service that you're potentially involved with, but you're just trying to collect a paycheck. You're just doing it for the money. That's all you care about is the money, right? So if you've ever had a job like that where you just show up for the money, you might have dragged yourself to work. You might have been unmotivated and unenthused each day when you go to work. What the Buddha is teaching you how to do is how to get to the point where you're very enthused and you have ambition and motivation to do whatever it is that you do in the world. Where when your alarm clock goes off in the morning, it's like, all right, I get to go to work, right? work doesn't have to be a hard thing for you. You can enjoy the work that you're doing. If you've noticed here in Thailand, there's people that thoroughly enjoy the work that they're doing, right? You can have this little lady on the street corner selling mango and sticky rice, and she just feels so great to wake up in the morning and go outside and pick her mangoes and bring them to the market and sit there and slice those mangoes open and put it out on a plate for you and give you some sticky rice and pour some coconut milk on it. She just has the biggest smile on her face whenever she's serving you this mango and sticky rice, and she's thoroughly enthused about serving you this mango and sticky rice. So what you need to do in your life is you need to find what is your mango and sticky rice. What is it that's going to motivate you in order to go to work each day with a big old smile on your face with nothing but ambition and enthusiasm? Because if you're in a job now that you feel like you're dragging your feet and you really don't enjoy it, that might not be the right job for you. So if you're interested in moving to a new job, or if you're in between jobs and you're looking to get employed somewhere, you're going to need to pay attention to this type of teaching. And there's further teachings beyond this that the Buddha shares about right livelihood. This is what's called the first fold of purification. If you look in volume 12, chapter 14, you will see what's called the second fold of purification. You will see the first fold and the second fold in that chapter. So if you're either in between jobs or you're looking to switch jobs, I recommend that you look at volume 12, chapter 14, because that's where you're going to find all the details about how to conduct yourself and develop a right livelihood that's going to be beneficial and motivating and have enthusiasm in your livelihood. So you can check out volume 12, chapter 14. That's where you're going to see that content. Okay, so now just to summarize the moral conduct section, right speech, or maybe what we would like to refer to as right communication. This is ensuring that all your verbal communication and your verbal conduct is harmless, and as well as all your other communication, your text messaging, chats, posts, emails, all of this should be harmless. Then you would like to look at your bodily actions and ensuring that you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. Because if you put harm out through your bodily actions, it's just going to come back to you. And then you would like to make sure that you're making wise choices about your livelihood and choosing to sustain your life without causing harm to others. Because whenever you're causing harm through your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. And ultimately getting to a point where you have enthusiasm and ambition about what you do on a day-to-day basis in order to support yourself in a livelihood. Do you guys have any questions on the moral conduct section? Could you use the mic?
One, two. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a moral conduct question, but there was a question in there, right? Something to do with meat. And well, I want to ask, are we supposed to eat meat?
So if you eat meat, that's a choice for you to decide, right? The Buddha's not going to tell you whether you should or shouldn't do anything, but what he's teaching you is the cause and effect, or the action and result about any decisions that you're choosing to make and what the effect's going to be. So if you choose to eat meat, what you're going to notice is that your body is going to experience more bodily sickness because you're going to have more inflammation in the body. You're going to have more sickness in the body. You're going to also notice effects to the mind, because when you're eating meat, you're not just eating the flesh of the animal. You're eating certain drugs and hormones and toxins that have been put into that animal, or even in wild situation, that there's animals that absorb these kinds of things into their flesh. So like they've taken wild fish out of clean running rivers and they've tested it, and they found things like cocaine and antidepressants and things like this in the flesh of the fish. So when you're eating the flesh of the animal, you're not just eating that meat, you're eating those substances too. And that's going to affect your mind, it's going to affect the body. So whether you choose to eat meat is a choice for you to make, but you are experiencing more bodily sickness because of it. And because we're causing harm through choosing to kill this animal and eat it, you're now going to experience harm yourself. You're going to experience unwholesome results. And right now, there's a lot of people that are starting to move to a plant-based food supply. But if you do that, or when you do that, is a choice for you to make. And if you do it, you're going to see improvement to the condition of your mind and the condition of the body.
So yeah, that's good. So really, meat is not really beneficial to you.
It's not. Nowadays, our population has been on meat for so long because at one time we were plant-based eaters. When we first started out, all human beings were plant-based eaters. We actually switched to meat out of necessity because we ran out of plants and vegetables in the forest, and our population became too big. So we started being scavengers, and we started chasing away lions and other animals in order to take over their hunt. And then that wasn't enough meat for us, so we started doing organized hunting. We started coming together, organizing, hunting animals, killing them, and eating them that way. That wasn't enough meat for us, so we started doing manufactured farming, right? So we've kind of evolved to this point where we're eating meat for many generations. And now when people start moving to a plant-based food supply, there's certain people that are going to be able to gradually do that, and it's going to be able to continue to be healthy in eating plant-based food. But there's going to be some beings where their body just doesn't adapt, and they're not going to be able to easily move over to a plant-based food supply. And even taking supplements, some people are going to have challenges with this. So if somebody is making their way to a plant-based food supply out of compassion for all the welfare of all living beings, then they could be doing that and move to a plant-based food supply. But you might find that in some cases, there's some people that if they didn't eat meat, this being would die because they would have difficulties. So I don't eat meat any longer, but I still need to eat just a little bit of eggs and a little bit of cheese or a little bit of, I use ice cream to get a B12 because the B12 that I take, the supplements that I take, it's not enough. That I noticed that I had a depletion of my B12 vitamin, and I was starting to notice all kinds of symptoms. And if I continue to allow that to occur, that's not showing compassion and loving kindness to this being who I am. So because we've been on animal products for so long, there's going to be some people that might need to eat a little bit of meat or a little bit of animal products. But ultimately, my goal is to get back to being completely plant-based again, where now maybe I'll eat a couple of eggs once a week, where there was a period of time for about 5 years where I didn't eat any meat, any animal products, no cheese, no milk, no nothing. And I was doing that for a period of time, but that's where the symptoms started coming in, even when I was taking the supplements. So you got to do this gradually and slowly but surely, and you got to pay attention to how it's affecting your body and making sure that you practice loving kindness and compassion for this being who you are. Okay. So, yes, ma'am. Yep.
I always have a question regarding karma. The question is, you see many other so-called successful people in this world, and they also behave like wrongly, but they are still well, they're happy, and they're successful, they have everything.
How do you know they're happy? Right?
Looks happy than me.
So the first thing you got to do is you got to understand that your definition of success may not be the best way to measure success, because oftentimes people measure success by wealth and whether somebody's wealthy or not. That's not a measurement of success, in my opinion. What's a measurement of success is, do you have harmonious relationships with the people around you, right? Can you navigate the world peacefully? This is what success means. But as long as you're looking at the wealth part of it, you can actually become very wealthy and very rich and still be angry and bitter and harsh and hostile individual in the world. It's possible to do that. So that's, in my opinion, not a measurement of success. And that individual who's being bitter and harsh and hostile, they're not happy, right? You might be looking at them having that private airplane, having that beautiful car, or whatever it is, and you might think they're happy because they have those things, but it's not true. Wealth doesn't lead to happiness, because if that was the case, then rich people would never commit suicide. But we see rich people commit suicide, right? Because they're having very painful feelings in their mind and they end up killing themselves. It's unfortunate that they do this, but if wealth and being famous and rich and a celebrity led to happiness, then celebrities would never kill themselves. Rich people would never kill themselves. But that's not what we see. Those people are actually struggling with the same discontent feelings that you're having. So when you're looking from the outside in, you might think that, oh, this person's successful and they're happy because they have money. But that's an indication of what's going on in your mind. You might think that money leads to happiness when that's not actually true. Because you can have people that have plenty of money, but they're not actually happy. They're not content. They're not peaceful.
Let's not talk about money because we are talking about a relationship and this seminar. So just take an example that people who are in relationship, in a good relationship, it seems they are kind of the successful one. But people who are single, looks like, but you cannot say they don't have a good relationship with other people or surroundings, but they are single. And is this the result of karma, or?
Everything you experience is the result of karma. But it's important to understand that karma isn't anything mystical or magical. It's a result of your decisions. So if you have harmonious relationships in your life, that's a result of your decisions. That's why in this course, Harmony in Relationships, we're focusing on you helping to train your mind. Because when you train your mind, you'll be able to make wiser decisions about what's going on in your relationships, and you will get to harmonious relationships. But if you don't have the wisdom of how to cultivate your own mind and how to cultivate harmonious relationships, you won't be able to do that. So the ability to have harmonious relationships is your karma, and that karma is the cause and effect from the decisions that you're making. When you make decisions wisely about how you conduct yourself in the world, you will have harmonious relationships. But if you don't have wisdom of the natural law, what we were just talking about, you're not going to be able to make those decisions. So with your lack of wisdom, you will make unwise decisions and you will have disharmony in your relationships. And that is also that person's karma. It's the results of their decisions. It's not any kind of black cloud that's following you around. It's nothing mystical or magical or anything like that. It's just purely the results of your decisions.
A lot of times it's just luck.
There's no such thing as luck. Everything is cause and effect. There's no such thing as luck, because everything you experience, whether you have friends or you don't have friends, whether you have a job or you don't, what your bank account balance is, all of these things are results of your decisions. You need to be able to see that very clearly, that there's this cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. It's all decisions that you're making. With the lack of wisdom of this natural law, people will think that it's good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate. There's no luck anywhere. You know, me being able to teach here and have this beautiful classroom, this isn't luck. This is decisions that I made, right? I was invited here by the ordained practitioners and by the members of this temple. They asked me if I would start teaching at this temple. I started teaching at this temple. I was teaching over there at that big building. I taught over there for about 3 or 4 years, and the classes became very big, and they moved us to another building and asked me if I would teach in this other building. Started teaching there. We outgrew that building. They asked us if I would like to start teaching here. This room was really run down. It was old. It was dilapidated. And I taught here for about 2.5 years in this classroom, and students were getting all this benefit and all this help, and they decided, like, hey, we would like to make the classroom look nice for you. So about 4 or 5 months ago, a bunch of students came together and they donated a bunch of funds, and they remodeled and refurbished this entire classroom so that you could have a really nice classroom to teach or to learn in. And it's a nice place for me to teach. When I first started teaching here, we didn't have air conditioning. I used to sit here and sweat. I'd be meditating, just sitting in one spot, and I could feel the sweat rolling under my clothes. It was so hot in here. But now, through the cause and effect, or through the decisions that I made to keep sharing the teachings, that people decided to support what I was doing. It wasn't luck. It was a cause and effect relationship, making wise decisions to help people. And by me practicing generosity and helping others, then people chose to practice generosity with me. That's the karma. Whatever you put out, you're going to experience coming back to you. There's no luck involved whatsoever. That's one of the misunderstandings that people have about the world, that they think what they're experiencing is good luck or bad luck. But you can't change good luck or bad luck. And as long as an individual thinks that way, you're not going to ever be able to see true reality, that what you're experiencing is a result of decisions that you're making. Because if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if what you're experiencing is good luck or bad luck, you can't change that. You're locked in. You can't change anything about that. But if you can see true reality that what you're experiencing is results of your decisions, then if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. And that's how you get to the peace and joy and a better, more improved life.
But there are a lot of things is out of your control, like where do you born, like who are your parents, and what kind of people you will meet on your path. Those are what I call luck. And the things you can control is let's say 60% or 70%, and the rest you can control.
That's not luck either. That's the results of your decisions. So based on your previous life decisions, that's what determined where in the world that you were reborn and what parents and what family you were born into. That's what's determining where you are actually born. It's from your choices and decisions from your previous lives. The people that you meet and the types of people that you meet, that's the results of your decisions too. Because if I choose to go to a bar, I'm going to meet certain people at that bar that are into drugs and alcohol and things like that. But if I choose to go to a yoga studio, I'm going to meet a different type of people at a yoga studio. Those are results of my decisions. If I choose to come to a temple and participate in a course or a retreat like this, I'm going to meet completely different types of people than if I choose to go to a gambling den where people are gambling, right? So each place that you go, these are choices that you make, and the people that you're going to encounter, that's not good luck or bad luck. That's the results of your decisions. You need to be able to see that very clearly, because otherwise you will resign yourself to thinking that it is good luck or bad luck, and you can't change good luck or bad luck. But anything about your life that you would like to change, you can change it by cultivating wisdom and making different decisions. You will then experience different results. You just have to look at it closer more and more, because your mind right now isn't really understanding and being able to see it clearly. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Karma. Back into karma again. Why? How come karma don't fit? You know, you get someone that go over there and can mass kill people, but they're still alive. So I mean, where's the karma in that?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you?
Oh, sorry, you know, you can have mass.
Hold on a second. I'm having trouble hearing you. Did you say that if somebody kills a lot of people, they are still alive?
Yeah,
and where is the karma in that? Yeah. Okay, so let me answer your question. So when you're looking at the natural law of karma, it doesn't mean just because you've killed somebody, you will automatically be killed. That's not the way that the natural law of karma works. It's not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Okay, the natural law of karma is a sequence of events. If I go off into war and I kill somebody and I'm killing lots of people, I'm very likely to be killed myself. And a lot of people will be killed or injured or have amputations or brain injuries or any number of things. But not every single person that goes off to war that has killed will be killed themselves. That's not the way the natural law of karma works. It's not plug and play. It's not, if you do this, you will absolutely get this. It doesn't affect everybody exactly the same way. But that individual who went off into war and killed, they are experiencing their karma. They are experiencing the results of their decisions, because when they come back home, they're maybe having challenges to integrate into society. They may be having trouble with drugs or alcohol or other substances. They might have suicidal thoughts. They might have guilt and shame and fear going on in their mind. They might have difficulties getting employment and acquiring wealth and things of this nature. So they are being affected by the decisions that they're making to go off the war to kill, but you might not be looking at the exact thing. You might just be saying, they killed, they're still alive, so therefore where's the karma? You're looking for, if they kill, they should be killed. That's not the way the natural law of karma works. There's multiple different aspects of how the natural law of karma is affecting you. It's not just that if you kill, you will be killed. It's if you kill, there are going to be unwholesome results, and there's a whole list of unwholesome results. It's not just being killed is the unwholesome result.
Yeah, man, you know, I've been in the forces myself, and when you go to war, it's kill or be killed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that don't go to war and kill.
Same thing. They're still being affected by their karma. I just use this example because it's an easy one to talk about. But even, let's just say I murdered somebody. And let's just say my bloody murder, my bloody footprint is at the murder scene. Yeah. And let's just say there's blood all over my car and the bloody murder weapon is under my bed, right? Well, maybe I go to court and I'm found not guilty. I'm still experiencing my karma. Going to court and going to the court of law, that's the human law. Right? That's not the natural law of karma. The human laws are imperfect. That's not the full natural law of karma. The natural law of karma is that I'm going to experience difficulties in my relationships. I'm going to experience sickness, disease. I'm going to have difficulties securing employment. I'm going to have difficulties securing housing. I'm going to have guilt and shame and fear in the mind. I'm going to have all kinds of difficulties like this. So just because you're not seeing this person found guilty in a court of law, or just because they haven't been killed themselves yet, doesn't mean that they're living a wonderful, magical life because they went off and killed. You're not necessarily understanding the natural law of karma in its entirety. So when you see this other person, you're only seeing such a smidget of their life. You're not seeing the totality of their entire life. So you're not seeing all the impacts of what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, isn't that... It's definitely not an eye.
It's not. No, it's not an eye for an eye. Everybody's experiencing life differently. So if somebody was taught that the natural law of karma is an eye for an eye, that's not the natural law of karma. That's not the way it functions. Okay. Do you have a question?
So in life, sometimes we have to encounter people with harsh and bitter speech or action, and what do we do, and how we can minimize the impact.
Sure.
Impact.
So while the Buddha is teaching you to use right speech and speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, with a mind of loving kindness, other people aren't going to necessarily talk to you in that way. As you're practicing these teachings for longer and longer periods of time, more and more people will speak to you that way. So right now in my life, 99.99999% of the time, people are loving and kind and warm and gentle with me because I've been practicing these teachings for such a long time. But there's an occasional situation where somebody's bitter and harsh and hostile. And what the Buddha is teaching you to do in these situations, because you're going to have those on your way to enlightenment, is to remain unaffected. Don't allow your mind to be affected by what other people are choosing to do. If you have a craving in your mind for everybody to treat you a certain way, that's your mind craving permanence. So now when somebody's polite, kind, friendly, respectful, you're happy. But when they're impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, you're angry and frustrated. That's because of your craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind having wrong view. But if you establish right view, then you understand that because of impermanence, not everybody's going to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. Even when you're enlightened, you're not going to have everybody be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to you. So you're going to need to get used to people being disrespectful and not allowing your mind to be affected by it. All you can do is just walk away, right? That's the best thing to do in most cases. Just walk away. No need to stand there while someone's being disrespectful or bitter or harsh or hostile. Just walk away. But when you have ego, and when you have a craving, you'll sit there and argue with them. How dare you treat me like that? I don't deserve to be talked to that way. And you'll argue with this person. That's not helping anything at all. It's best to just walk away.
What if this person is a relative of you or in your family?
If this person is in your family or relative, same thing. Just walk away. Okay. You don't have to. Just because they're a member of your family doesn't mean you have to interact with them. Right? There are members of my family that I chose not to talk to, right? One member of my family was in drugs and alcohol their entire life. There was never a kind word that I ever heard from this person their entire life. And I chose to just not talk to this individual. They ended up dying very early in life based on, they were drank themselves to death, basically, with alcohol. And I didn't need to talk to this person, even though they were a family member. Doesn't mean I have to talk to them. I distanced myself from that individual as far as possible because I wasn't interested in continuing to spend time around this individual. So you can choose to do those kinds of things. But if you're angry or frustrated, that's not them that's causing it. And you choosing not to spend time with them isn't going to fix your anger and your frustration. So I wasn't angry at this person. I wasn't frustrated. I was just choosing out of wise decision making not to associate with this individual, because anytime I did, there was always difficulties with that individual, that they were making all kinds of issues within the family. So I just chose to distance myself, but I wasn't angry or bitter or harsh in my mind. I wasn't upset with this person. I just understood that there's just no way for me to have a relationship with this person. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hugo, you have something, or are you just holding the mic?
Following up on the karmatic question,
Mm-hmm.
the brother here, is it possible to offset karma? Like, for example, you kill somebody and then you made a life decision that you are going to save a lot of people. Is that possible to offset karma just by being, a good person, extremely good person?
No matter what you do, whether you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you are going to experience the results of that. So if you killed a human being, you are going to experience the results of that killing. But how it affects you is going to be different from person to person to person. It depends. So you can extinguish your karma where you no longer are experiencing unwholesome karma, but you will have to experience the unwholesome karma of the decisions that you made. So you can't run and hide from the karma that you've created. But when it's coming back to you, you can extinguish it. And the way that you do that is through the Eightfold Path, is learning and practicing the Eightfold Path. So like during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was an individual who had killed 999 people, and he tried to kill the Buddha as well. And ultimately ended up becoming a student of the Buddha, and he got to enlightenment. But he had to experience the karma of his killing 999 people. He had to experience that. But ultimately he extinguished it, and then he was able to get to enlightenment. And one of the reasons why I like to use this story is not only because it applies to you, but sometimes people ask me, like, can I really get to enlightenment in this life? And my answer is always, yes, you can. Because I know that you haven't killed 999 people, right? If someone can kill 999 people and still get to enlightenment, you haven't done anything close to that. You can surely get to enlightenment in this life. But yeah, this is an example of no matter what you do, you will experience the results of your decisions. So this individual was well known in the community for being a murderer and a killer and these kinds of things, and they faced the results of their decisions.
And the second question is related to luck. How can we explain that some people, they hardly ever get sick, they age beautifully, and they died on a very peaceful way, whether other people, they're always sick, they're always struggling, and they died on very unfortunate circumstances? The only way that I can rationally explain it is that it's the lack of the draw.
The lack of what?
The lack of the draw, DNA roulette.
The lack of the draw. Okay. No, it's karma. It's the results of your decisions. If you make wise decisions, then you will experience wholesome results in terms of the health of the body and what you experience in terms of death. But if you're making unwise decisions, then you will experience unwholesome results. The body itself is what we call old karma. It's karma from your previous lives. It's decisions that you made in your previous life that you're experiencing now. So like if you died when you were 3 years old, for example, that was decisions that you made in your previous life, and this body that you've inhabiting, it is your old karma from your previous life that now wasn't able to support your life. And this could be someone who killed. They might have killed in their previous life, and now they lived into their 80 years old, they died, and now they were reborn, and then maybe they died when they were 3 years old, potentially. Not everybody is that's the case, but that is the potential. So whatever condition you're experiencing in terms of your body, this is your old karma. But then as you're in this life and you're making new decisions about your exercise habits, your food that you're ingesting, your sleeping habits, and things like this, this is producing new karma in this life in terms of the health of this body. It's results of decisions that you're making. So for example, my mother ate unhealthy food her entire life. She used to eat very unhealthy food. And at different times, we tried to help her and show her how to make healthy food, but she just chose not to do it. She ended up dying at the age of 66, a very young age, in my opinion. She died at 66, and she died of an illness that was related to eating bad food. That was a result of her decisions, that she chose to eat that unhealthy food her entire life, and then that's what led to her death. Where my grandmother, on the other hand, she's outlived her husband, she outlived her daughter, which was my mom, she outlived her son, which was my uncle. She's like 101, almost 102 years old. She made very wise decisions during her life about her food and all these other things in her life, and that's why she's living the amount of time that she's living, right? So it's always the results of our decisions. It's not a luck of the draw. It's about what decisions are we making? Because if you have a lot of stress and anxiety and these kinds of things in your mind, this is going to put stress on the body and the bodily organs, and you're going to die. So if you have anger and hostility and bitterness, you're going to tend to die a lot earlier than someone whose mind is peaceful and joyful and calm, right? So these are all results of individuals' decisions that are producing these things. That is the gamma.
It makes sense. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so now moving into the next section about mental discipline. We're going to talk about right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is where the teachings of the Buddha really come to life, and you're able to see how to implement the training on a day-to-day basis. So here he talks about right effort. Here he's talking about 4 different things. Normally I read this to you guys, but because we just had a nice long discussion about Karma, and I'd like to see you guys have lunch today, I'm going to just skip over reading this, and I'm going to teach you what he's actually teaching you, okay? Because these are 4 things that he's actually teaching you. He's teaching you to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. He's teaching you to abandon or eliminate certain unwholesome mental states that are in the mind. He's teaching you to cultivate or bring into the mind wholesome qualities that don't currently exist in your mind. And he's teaching you to support and encourage and maintain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to do this. It's not going to just happen naturally. So for example, you have certain unwholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind right now. An example of that might be that you're not interested in killing another human being. That's the farthest thing from your mind right now. And what the Buddha is saying is prevent that from ever coming into your mind. That type of thing and any other thing that is unwholesome, that's not currently in your mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into your mind. Then there's certain unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind that you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate. An example might be if somebody is in a current relationship and they have a craving for sexual contact outside of that existing relationship, you know that's going to cause harm in your life and in the relationship that you're in. So when you notice that craving to have sex with someone outside of your relationship comes up, cut that off, eliminate that, apply right effort to get that out of your mind. Or say you have anger, frustration, or irritation that comes into your mind. If you're noticing that coming up in your mind, apply the effort to eliminate that unwholesome quality from your mind. Then there's producing certain wholesome qualities to arise in the mind. There's certain wholesome qualities that you're going to need in order to get to enlightenment that are not currently in your mind. And you're going to need to be able to apply the effort to bring those wholesome qualities into your mind. Generosity is a good example of this. That generosity is training your mind to give and share more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources. This is what's going to train your mind to let go. As long as your mind has craving, desire, attachment, there's going to be a certain amount of selfishness that's in your mind where you're holding on to things and you find it very difficult to share with other people. So you're going to need to be comfortable to give and share with other people your time, effort, energy, and resources. So if this is a quality that is not currently in your mind, you're going to need to apply effort to bring this generosity into your mind so that you can give and share with the people around you and not always wanting things to be self-satisfying for yourself. So you're going to need to look for ways to be able to practice generosity. Then there's things like compassion, that compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. Maybe you find that you're indifferent. When you see someone who's maybe homeless or maybe they're addicted to drugs, you're like, I don't care. Who cares? It's not my life, right? That's a lack of compassion. So if you don't have compassion in your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into your mind. Then there's certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind that you're going to need to support and encourage and bring them to full growth and full perfection and full development. There are certain wholesome qualities like maybe loving kindness that are currently in your mind, but it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because in some cases you can be loving and kind with people, but in other cases you kind of have anger, or irritation, or frustration, or maybe you dislike other people. This is coming from your own mind, and your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth and full development, because otherwise you wouldn't be getting angry in those situations, because loving kindness is the exact opposite. It's this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So in situations where you see you have loving kindness, you're going to need to support that, encourage it, don't allow it to fade. And in the situations where you're not loving and kind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that loving kindness into your mind and support it, encourage it, and don't allow it to fade. Sympathetic joy is another good example. This is like joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy and envy, that maybe in some cases you have sympathetic joy. Maybe someone's like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. And you're like, oh, I really enjoyed that place. You're going to have a great time. Have a good time. Wonderful. Congratulations that you're going, right? You might be quite having a lot of sympathetic joy, that you have joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But maybe you're at work and your coworker applied for a new job and you applied for a new job, like a promotion at your company, and they got the job instead of you. Maybe now you're jealous or you're envious. This is because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring in that sympathetic joy. So this is right effort, applying the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind, to eliminate unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, apply the effort to bring in wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, and apply effort to support and encourage and not allow to fade away these wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. And the examples that I gave are just examples. The things that are wholesome or unwholesome that are in your mind are going to be unique to you. And that's where the next step comes in. This is what's going to help you to be able to then actually practice right effort. You need to be able to practice right mindfulness, where you have awareness of the mind. This is the Buddha teaching what is right mindfulness. So again, normally I would read this to you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to teach you what is right mindfulness. What he's teaching you is he's teaching you awareness of mind. This is where you need to be aware of the thoughts and the ideas and the wholesome and the unwholesome qualities within your own mind. This word mindfulness has made its way into modern conversations, but people aren't typically using it in the same way that the Buddha uses it. Someone might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's not the way that the Buddha used this word mindfulness. He used it as a way to help you understand that you're going to need to build this awareness of what's going on in your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, things like this. What is wholesome, what is unwholesome in your own mind? And you develop this through the next step, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But generally, you might think about mindfulness as awareness of mind. And that's where people start for the first few months, just kind of building some awareness of your mind. But more specifically, you would like to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's what the Buddha is describing when he talks about the right mindfulness, is that there's these 4 things that you need to build awareness of. You need to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What he's explaining to you here is the life cycle that your discontentedness is going to take, and you're going to need to be able to practice being aware of these things. So for example, if you have a craving, desire, attachment in your mind, and you're wanting things to be a certain way, well, when you have contact through your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, your body, or your mind, if it triggers one of your cravings, desires, attachments, you're either going to get a pleasant feeling or you're going to get a painful feeling. or a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. But before you do, there is a bodily sensation that's occurring that you may or may not even be aware of right now. But you're going to need to be aware of these bodily sensations. If we take something like anger, you might have noticed some tingling in the body, some tightening in the chest, some tightening in the throat, some heat in the face, or pressure in the skull. This is the bodily sensations associated with the arising of discontentedness. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. You're not suppressing your thoughts. You're not repressing them. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. So you're not suppressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it actually becomes a feeling. And this is what's going to transform your mind. You're essentially putting a blockade at the bodily sensations, cutting it off and letting it go. Because what those bodily sensations are is it's an early warning system alerting you that you're about to become discontent. Your mind saying, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling here. And you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. Right? You're basically cutting off and letting go, applying right effort. And this is what's going to transform your mind, that you're not allowing your mind to stay wired that way to form a conditioned feeling. Because if you have conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, your mind is forming inner feelings based on some external thing. And if you allow your mind to keep doing that, you're going to keep experiencing discontentedness over and over and over again. So it's the right mindfulness of having awareness of the bodily sensations that's going to allow you to transform the mind. Essentially, the way you might think about this is that if you were taking a boat from Australia to Indonesia and you were out in the middle of the water, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. You got to get this water out, right? So it's the same thing as once you allow the mind to experience the feeling, you've got a real problem to deal with now because your mind's staying wired that way to experience this feeling. So the Buddha is teaching you to prevent this from ever coming into the mind by cutting off and eliminating at the bodily sensations. But you're not going to be able to do that with just a snap of a finger. You're going to need to train your mind and accumulate the ability to be aware of these bodily sensations every single time. So between now and enlightenment, you're going to miss it. Sometimes you're not going to be able to cut it off as a bodily sensation. It is going to become a feeling. And what the Buddha teaches you is to be aware of that now the mind's angry. Now the mind's feeling boredom or loneliness. Now the mind's embarrassed, right? That's an observation that the mind can make. It can be aware that the mind is now experiencing this feeling. And if you missed it as a bodily sensation, at least cut it off as a feeling. Right? The ideal thing would be to cut it off as a bodily sensation, but if not, cut it off as a feeling. That's going to rewire the mind over time. But you need to get better and better at cutting it off as a bodily sensation. If you miss it as a bodily sensation and you miss it as a feeling, then it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. This is where for multiple minutes, hours, days, you're frustrated, you're agitated. Have you ever been agitated for multiple days? For a week or so? Of course you have. Every single one of you have, because you weren't aware of this at that time, right? Your mind experienced some contact. You had a craving in your mind. The anger arose. The frustration arose. You didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. You didn't cut it off as a feeling. And now it affected the condition of your mind. That for multiple minutes, for multiple days, maybe even a week or so, you were grumpy or irritable or agitated, right? This is the condition of the mind. And you need to be aware of the condition of the mind. That's going to help you to transform your mind. And then what a mental object is, this is a deeply rooted container in your mind. In this example, it's ill will. Right now, you probably don't have any anger in your mind. You're just listening to somebody speak. But if one of your cravings get triggered, that ill will is going to arise because you have this deeply rooted container in your mind that this anger, this hostility, this bitterness is going to arise in your mind. That's because of this mental object of ill will. We weren't born with ill will. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? We acquired this over time, that because we lacked wisdom of the four foundations of mindfulness, we experienced this anger over time, in this condition of the mind, it formed this mental object of ill will. We didn't go into the nursery having conceit or ego, right? We didn't go into the nursery like, my gloves are better than your gloves. My hat looks better than your hat. My crib is better than yours. We didn't do that when we were a baby because we didn't have conceit. This was a mental object that got formed over time. So you're going to need to know about these mental objects. These are the 10 fetters, the 10 individual pollutions. You're going to need to know what those are, the symptoms of them, how to eliminate them, and how to know that you've actually eliminated them. That's something that I teach in other courses and retreats. So the mental objects are deeply rooted containers that the mind is having that are going to be pollutions of the mind. And this is what you're purifying on your journey to enlightenment, is you're eliminating these mental objects out of the mind. Things like ill will, things like conceit, and other things like this. Okay, so this is right mindfulness. Now there's right concentration. And I typically don't read this to people. What I do is I teach you how to practice right concentration. Because in the teachings of the Buddha, he shares with you how to practice right concentration. Back here, he's explaining to you the results of putting together all the other factors of the Eightfold Path. This is he's describing the jhanas. These are enhanced qualities of mind. These are phases that your mind goes through as you get to the first stage of enlightenment. There's 4 stages of enlightenment. And as you're training your mind, you're going to experience these 4 phases that the mind goes through. And then in terms of how to practice right concentration, he teaches that in other parts of his teachings. He teaches you to practice meditation and practice singleness of mind in day-to-day life. This is what's going to promote the concentration. And you're going to need that concentration because you're going to need to be able to have concentration in your day-to-day life in order to bring forth your full practice. So breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation, this is developing your meditation practice. That's why we work on that in these courses, so you guys can develop that. You'd like to develop a meditation practice of 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. Starting out with breathing mindfulness meditation for probably a good 2, 4, maybe 6 weeks, building that up first, and then bringing in the loving kindness meditation. That's what's going to help you to fully develop your meditation practice. And understand that this development of your practice can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build this up. So you're not going to be able to walk out of here, snap your fingers, and instantly start meditating for 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more. So give yourself some time to gradually build up this practice over the course of your life. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind in day-to-day life. This is where you're just doing one thing at a time. Oftentimes people are taught to multitask. Your mind actually cannot multitask. What you're actually doing is you're doing one thing at a time, but you're rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, and your mind thinks you're doing multiple things. So you might be typing out an email, and then you switch and go over here and do something with the microwave, and then you switch and go over here and do something else. So if I was talking on the phone to my mom, I was watching TV, and I'm eating a sandwich, I'm not actually doing all 3 things at the same time. I'm talking to my mom for a few seconds, watching TV for a few seconds, eating a sandwich for a few seconds. The mind is rapidly cycling around and around and around and around and around. And if you get to the end of your day, having done this, you might find that it's hard to relax. You might get home and you're stressed and you're having anxiety. It's kind of like a racehorse running around a racetrack. When it goes to the barn, it's really hard for it to calm down. It's all hyped up, right? So that's what's going on with your mind. So you would like to do just one thing at a time. So if you're in a business meeting and your mind's wandering and you're thinking about that amazing trip to Thailand that you're going to be taking soon, you'd like to cut that off and let it go, because you're not performing well in the business meeting, right? Like, no need to think about Thailand right now. Come back to the business meeting. That's what you're involved in. Let's focus on the business meeting. Or if you're washing dishes and your mind is wandering about something, cut that off. Apply right effort. You need to use your right mindfulness, apply right effort in order to practice right concentration, so you can bring your mind back to the middle where you can be focused and concentrated. And that's where you'll be able to bring forth your full wisdom to be able to address whatever it is that you're doing. Because if I was talking to my mom, watching TV and eating a sandwich, I'm probably going to be saying and doing things on the phone that I have to go back and clean up later. This individual thinks that they're actually being more productive in what they're doing, but in reality, you're actually making it more difficult for yourself because maybe you say things that you regret later and you need to go clean it up. Or maybe you agreed to things to do for your mom and you totally forgot what they were because you didn't have concentration, and now you got to go back and ask her, like, Mom, I'm so sorry, what did I agree to do for you again? I can't remember, right? So you're actually taking more time to actually do this, so you're not being more productive. So this conversation that could have been like maybe a 10 or 15 minute conversation, it ended up being 45 minutes, and then you had to go back and clean things up anyway. So it took you actually longer to do this. So if you're focused and concentrated, you actually be able to handle each individual daily task more readily. And as you learn to do this more and more, where you're practicing singleness of mind, your mind will get so refined and it'll get so well practiced that you're just always concentrated. Right now, if you're in a business meeting, your mind might wander and you need to cut that off and bring it back. But if you do that enough, your mind won't wander like that. It's kind of like if you had a piece of wood and a steel rod and you grinded this back and forth. When you first started doing that, the steel rod's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. But if you do it long enough, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove, and it'll still pop out every once in a while, but you're going to notice it and you're going to bring it right back to the groove. But then if you grind this steel rod back long enough, this groove is going to get so deep that the steel rod will never pop out. It's impossible for it to do that. And that's the way that the enlightened mind is functioning. That when you've trained your mind well enough, you will be so focused and so concentrated that your mind won't ever pop out. And you're practicing that effortlessly. And the way that you get to that is by practicing singleness of mind and by practicing meditation in your day-to-day life. This should be a daily practice. Okay? So now, just to summarize this, what right effort is you're taking initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate certain wholesome qualities in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. Then what right mindfulness is where you're practicing awareness of the mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Being aware of the bodily sensations, that's the early warning system that's alerting you that your mind is about to become discontent. And you'd like to apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Then you'd like to be aware of any feelings, any condition of the mind, and then any mental objects that one is experiencing. And then to practice right concentration, you would like to develop a meditation practice and develop singleness of mind where you're just doing one thing at a time. And this is what's going to help you to hone your mind and get more and more focused with your concentration within your own mind. Any questions on the mental discipline section? No questions? Okay, let me check here online, see if we have any questions. Hello to everyone. Nice to see you guys there. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere online either. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take a break here so you guys can have some lunch. It's basically a 12:40, and while we normally take an hour and a half lunch, would you guys be okay with an hour and 20 minutes? Come back at 2 o'clock. Nobody's attached or craving an hour and a half. Yeah. Yeah, it's up to you. If you come back, you come back. If you don't, you don't. It's up to you. I'll be here teaching at 2 o'clock. What I'm going to teach at 2 o'clock is I'm going to teach the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. And I'm going to teach you that these are like to broaden your understanding of what the problems are in the mind and really to deepen it. And I'm going to share with you the solutions there too. So since you guys aren't craving an hour and a half lunch, you can see that you're quite peaceful and quite calm, right? You can independently verify the teachings of the Buddha. When there is no craving, there is no discontentedness, right? Whereas if you were craving an hour and a half lunch, you'd be frustrated and agitated when I say, oh, we only have an hour and 20 minutes, right? So enjoy your lunch, and I'll perhaps see you guys at 2 o'clock, okay? Take care and have a lovely lunch. We'll see you afterwards, okay?